Federal Number 1 High School, Realm Awakening Plaza. Beneath the blazing sun, 3,000 senior 3 students held their breath, their eyes fixed on the towering divine altar at the center of the plaza. Chu Jianghe stood in the middle of the altar, one palm pressed against the awakening godstone. A faint glimmer emanated from the stone. After several seconds, the light faded completely, turning into a lifeless ash gray. Wang Buping, the mentor standing beside him, glanced at the display screen, his brows furrowed with disappointment flickering across his face. He raised the megaphone, and his voice echoed across the entire plaza. Senior Class 2, Chu Jianghe. Realm successfully opened. Area, 1 square kilometer. Initial Vassal, Undead Branch, Zombies. Vassal Rank, 0 tier. Silence swept over the crowd for a single heartbeat. The next instant, thunderous laughter erupted, loud enough to shake the rooftops. Zombies? Did I hear that right? The trash race sitting at the very bottom of the hierarchy in textbooks. They cannot reproduce. Once one perishes, it's gone forever. His realm is doomed to run dry. They don't generate any faith value at all. What's the point of keeping these useless creatures? Chu Jianghe is finished. He ranked first in cultural studies, yet he awakened such low-tier vassals. He'll end up nothing more than a menial laborer for the rest of his life. Waves of jeers crashed over Chu Jianghe. At the front of the crowd, a young man clad in tailor-made battle attire stepped forward. This was Lin Tianjiao, the school tyrant, who had awakened second-tier vassals, the orcs, half an hour earlier. Lin Tianjiao folded his arms, staring up at Chu Jianghe on the altar with a mocking smirk. Chu Jianghe, those zombies of yours can't even defeat the weakest goblin. What a pity. He then raised his voice to ensure every person on the plaza heard him. Here's an offer. My Lin family's Godstone mines are in need of someone to clean the restrooms. Come work for us after graduation, and I'll pay double wages. Consider it charity. How does that sound? Another roar of laughter burst forth from the audience. Several of Lin Tianjiao's lackeys whistled loudly. Chu Jianghe stood on the altar, looking down at Lin Tianjiao. There was no rage, no gritted teeth. Having survived more than a dozen years crawling through the apocalypse before transmigrating to this world where everyone could become a deity, Chu Jianghe's nerves had long been tempered into steel. This petty verbal provocation meant less to him than a zombie's low growl. Mind your own business. With those words, Chu Jianghe turned and descended from the altar. Lin Tianjiao's expression darkened. He let out a cold snort. Stubborn till the end. Let's see how you fare in tomorrow's resource assessment. Those zombies can't even feed themselves. Half of them will starve by tonight. Chu Jianghe ignored the chatter behind him and walked straight toward the shade at the edge of the plaza. He closed his eyes, channeling his consciousness into his mind. The moment his hand touched the godstone, a cold mechanical voice had resounded within his head. Ding. Detected hosts awakened initial vassal, zombies. Hidden conditions met. Congratulations, host. You have awakened the SSS rank talent, Endless Horde of the Dead. Chu Jianghe's breath caught for a split second. An SSS rank talent. Throughout the history of the Federation, only a handful of people had ever awakened an SSS rank talent. Every single SSS rank awakener who grew to their full potential eventually became supreme deities who commanded the stars. He immediately brought up his talent panel. Talent. Endless Horde of the Dead SSS rank trait 1. Absolute assimilation. Any creature killed or bitten by zombies has a 100 chance to transform into a zombie of the same rank. They retain 70 of their combat power from life, alongside all innate skills and abilities. Trait 2. Zeal of the Fallen. All vassals gain plus 1,000 movement, work, and attack speed. They remain in peak condition eternally, immune to fatigue and physical wear. Trait 3. Flesh Ascension. Zombies can endlessly mutate and evolve by consuming high-tier divine artifacts or living flesh. Chu Jianghe stared rigidly at the panel, his heart pounding wildly. The entire school was mocking zombies for being unable to multiply. Multiply? Why would they need to? Living vassals required food, sleep. They fell ill, felt fear, lost loyalty after prolonged labor, and could even stage uprisings. To sustain their vassals, deities had to calculate every resource carefully, living like overworked caretakers. Zombies needed none of that. No food, no rest, no sense of pain, no internal emotional strife. They were the perfect perpetual laborers across all realms. Chu Jianghe focused his will, sending his consciousness into his newly born realm. It was a desolate stretch of gray land spanning just 1 square kilometer. Across the terrain wandered 1,000 ragged zombies with vacant, lifeless eyes. Their skin was ashen, their movements stiff as they roamed aimlessly. Chu Jianghe opened his vassal panel. Race, ordinary zombie rank, 0 tier quantity, 1000 combat power, 5 faith value output, 0 truly weak. Their combat power fell below that of a healthy adult human. Yet Chu Jianghe's gaze locked onto a black hill at the edge of his realm. It was a native resource that came with all novice realms, an abandoned black iron mine. Ordinarily, novice deities would issue divine edicts, ordering their vassals to craft simple tools. They would work 8 hours each day, slowly mining or to gather their first fortune. Chu Jianghe had no tools, and he did not need any. All units. Chu Jianghe's voice boomed as divine thunder, echoing across the sky above the realm. The 1,000 zombies froze at once, their hollow gazes lifting uniformly toward the heavens. Head to that mine. Mine. There was no hesitation, no questioning. The 1,000 zombies stiffly turned and charged toward the black iron mine. Empowered by the 1,000 speed boost from Zeal of the Fallen, their normally rigid movements turned ferocious, kicking up clouds of dust as they surged forward like beasts catching the scent of blood. Seconds later, the horde reached the foot of the mine. No pickaxes, no shovels. They drove their bare hands straight into the hard black iron rock. Crack. Fingers strained and dug into the stone. Nails ripped away and snapped, dark blood trickling down the rock face. The zombies did not pause. They could feel no pain. Their exposed bony knuckles continued slamming against the ore. When their hands failed, they bit with their teeth and rammed the rock with their heads. Thud, thud, thud. The unsettling crash echoed throughout the realm. Huge chunks of black iron ore were torn loose and piled onto the ground. Chu Jianghe hovered midair, watching the frantic scene unfold below. This was efficiency beyond any overseer's wildest dreams. He opened his realm resource panel. Black iron ore, plus 10 units black iron ore, plus 50 units black iron ore, plus 200 units. The numbers surged nonstop. A team of orcs equipped with iron pickaxes was considered highly productive if they mined 50 units in a full day. Yet Chu Jianghe's 1,000 zombies mined with their bare hands. In merely 10 minutes, his stockpile of black iron ore had surpassed 3,000 units. And their pace continued accelerating. Keep mining. Do not stop until your bones crumble apart. Chu Jianghe issued his cold command. The zombies labored on without cease. The mountain was visibly worn down before his eyes. Chu Jianghe withdrew his consciousness from the realm and opened his eyes. The crowds on the playground were beginning to disperse. Lin Tianjiao walked surrounded by his followers, loudly boasting about the strength of his orc vassals. Tomorrow brings the settlement for the novice resource collection ranking. First place earns 50,000 divine coins as a reward. Chu Jianghe, can those zombies of yours dig up even a single rock tonight? Don't end up with a 0 on the leaderboard and disgrace our school. Lin Tianjiao called out once more as he passed Chu Jianghe. Chu Jianghe met Lin Tianjiao's gaze, his expression as calm as if he were staring at a corpse. We shall see the leaderboard tomorrow. Chu Jianghe turned and left the plaza. A 0? Glancing at the resource numbers still climbing at the edge of his vision, Chu Jianghe pulled on a cold smirk. Just wait and see what tomorrow's resource ranking reveals. The following morning, at Federal No. 1 High School, a huge crowd gathered before the central giant screen. Today marked the ranking settlement for the first resource collection competition for the newly awakened Senior 3 students. Rankings brought prestige, and first place came with a reward of 50,000 divine coins awarded by the school. Lin Tianjiao stood at the very front, brimming with confidence. Tianjiao, first place is guaranteed to be yours. Orcs possess great stamina, and you even bought iron pickaxes for them. You'll mine at least 200 units of black iron ore overnight. Lin Tianjiao's followers flocked around him, showering him with compliments. Lin Tianjiao adjusted his uniform collar and spoke haughtily. Around 250 units. I ordered them to work 2 extra hours through the night. Gasps rippled through the surrounding crowd. Incredible. Most people can only gather 30 units in a full night. He truly bears the bearing of a rising deity. Lin Tianjiao scanned the crowd proudly, failing to spot Chu Jianghe. Has that useless Chu Jianghe not shown up? His zombies probably haven't lifted a finger. He must be hiding somewhere out of shame. Lin Tianjiao sneered. Dong. The bell chimed. The giant screen flickered to life. The novice resource collection ranking was officially unveiled. Every head snapped upward. Lin Tianjiao's eyes locked directly on the spot where his name would appear, ready to bask in the glory of claiming first place. However, second place, Lin Tianjiao. Vassals, orcs. Resources collected, 250 units of black iron Oregon. Lin Tianjiao froze. Second place? Who could possibly outperform him? He jerked his head upward to read the first entry. First place, Chu Jianghe. Vassals, zombies. Resources collected, 28,500 units of black iron Oregon. A deathly silence blanketed the plaza. Every pair of eyes widened like copper bells. Mouths hung open, unable to make a single sound. 28,500 units? Lin Tianjiao rubbed his eyes, convinced he was seeing things. That's impossible. Lin Tianjiao shouted in a cracking voice, pointing wildly at the screen. Over 28,000 units? Even if Chu Jianghe blew his entire realm apart, he could never gather this much, or cheating. He must have cheated. The crowd erupted into chaos. This data looks completely fake. It's 100 times higher. Zombies can't even wield tools. How could they mine or mentor? I demand an investigation into Chu Jianghe. At that moment, a clear, cold voice cut through the noise from the rear of the crowd. Everyone be quiet. Su Qingxue, the lead mentor of Senior 3, strode forward in high-heeled shoes. She possessed breathtaking beauty and an icy bearing, a demigod who had already ignited her divine flame. All realm data is monitored directly by the federal mainframe. Cheating is impossible, Su Qingxue said coldly. But Mentor Su, these numbers defy all logic. Lin Tianjiao ground his teeth. That is why I have come to verify it personally. Su Qingxue turned toward Chu Jianghe, who had appeared silently at the edge of the crowd without anyone noticing. Chu Jianghe, open partial vision access to your realm. I intend to inspect it, Su Qingxue said sternly. Chu Jianghe's expression remained calm. He nodded. Very well. He waved his hand, and a light curtain unfolded in midair, projecting live footage from within his realm. Every teacher and student craned their necks to watch. The footage showed no field of starving zombies as everyone had expected. The towering black iron mine hill had vanished entirely. In its place stretched a massive underground quarry. The pit sank 100 meters deep. 1,000 zombies clung densely to the rock walls. They had no tools. Their fingers had worn down to bone, their forearms mangled and covered in dried blood. Yet they continued striking the rock at a terrifying, unrelenting pace, slamming against the stone with their heads, teeth, and jagged exposed bone fragments. Thud, thud, thud. Mechanical, numb, and ruthlessly efficient. Not one zombie paused to rest. Not one let out a sound of agony. They operated like endless mining machines that never shut down. Silence reigned once more. Chills raced up everyone's spines as scalp-numbing dread washed over them. Lin Tianjiao stood with his mouth agape, his face drained of all color. His beloved orcs needed food and rest after 2 hours of labor and often grew irritable from exhaustion. But Chu Jianghe's zombies. How could any carbon-based creature function like this? Su Qingxue took a deep breath, her chest rising and falling sharply. In 10 years of teaching, she had never laid eyes on such relentless vassals. No emotional friction, impervious to pain, utterly obedient. Su Qingxue murmured to herself. Her gaze toward Chu Jianghe shifted completely. These were not the worst race imaginable. They were the perfect workforce. The result stands valid. Su Qingxue declared firmly. Chu Jianghe claims first place. The 50,000 divine coin reward will be transferred to your account shortly. The light curtain faded away. Ignoring the mixture of awe and fear in the surrounding stares, Chu Jianghe turned and headed for the school's trade hall. He had a massive stockpile of black iron ore to sell. Logging onto the Federal Deity Trading Network, Chu Jianghe checked the market price of black iron ore in the novice district. The current stable price stood at 10 divine coins per unit. This market was largely monopolized by the trading firm owned by Lin Tianjiao's family. Chu Jianghe let out a cold smile. He immediately listed all 28,000 units of black iron ore. Listing price, 2 divine coins per unit. A market crash. News spread instantly, throwing the entire novice trading zone into an uproar. Countless new deities in need of basic resources rushed to buy. In barely 1 minute, all 28,000 units were snapped up. Chu Jianghe's account instantly gained 56,000 divine coins. With the 50,000 coin reward from the school added in, he now held a fortune of 100,000 divine coins. On the other side, Lin Tianjiao's family trading firms suffered heavy losses. Their large stockpile purchased at high prices became nearly worthless amid the dumping, breaking their capital chain. Chu Jianghe wasted no time and began searching the trading network for supplies he needed. First-tier flesh essence, 100 divine coins per portion. Worn fine-grade iron blades, 50 divine coins each. Without hesitation, he purchased 1,000 portions of flesh essence and 1,000 iron blades. His funds vanished in an instant. Chu Jianghe returned to his dormitory and once more channeled his consciousness into his realm. Halt all work. The divine edict echoed out. The zombies mining frantically within the quarry froze on the spot. Their hands were mangled, bodies coated in filth and blood, appearing ready to fall apart at any moment. Chu Jianghe waved his hand. A rain of crimson light descended from the sky. The 1,000 portions of first-tier flesh essence drifted down, each landing precisely in front of a single zombie. Flesh Ascension talent activated. Roar. 1,000 zombies let out simultaneous, savage howls. Their broken bodies swelled violently. Worn bones regrew, wrapped in dark red muscle tissue. Where nails had fallen away, 10-centimeter black bone spurs sprouted. Their ashen skin darkened to deep crimson, and a scarlet killing intent ignited within their empty eye sockets. System notifications flooded his vision nonstop. Your vassals have consumed first-tier flesh essence and undergone mutation. Ordinary zombies have evolved into first-tier berserk zombies. Combat power increased to 50. Chu Jianghe scattered the 1,000 iron blades across the realm. The berserk zombies reached out and grasped the weapons. Their strength was now great enough to split boulders with a single slash. His army was fully armed. Chu Jianghe opened his realm panel and fixed his gaze on the stellar coordinates marking the outer reaches of his territory. Countless unclaimed miniature wild creature planes existed there. Typically, novice deities would spend an entire month developing their realm before daring to explore wild plains. Chu Jianghe could not afford to wait. He needed to expand his army. Lock onto coordinates. Miniature goblin encampment. Open the planar gateway. 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The school combat simulation building. All senior 3 students gathered within the holographic observation hall. The afternoon brought the school organized simulated invasion assessment. The system would randomly assign each student a miniature plane holding between 100 and 300 zero-tier wild monsters, where their vassals would engage in combat. Assessment scores determined resource allocations for the following month. Chu Jianghe sat in a simulation pod in the corner and donned his neural helmet. A massive central screen split into thousands of smaller windows, broadcasting live footage of every student's battle. Lin Tianjiao stood before the screen, his eyes burning with venom. The resource-ranking humiliation from the morning still stung deeply, and his family trading firm had suffered millions of divine coins and losses from the market crash. Though unaware Chu Jianghe was behind the price collapse, he blamed all his misfortune on Chu Jianghe. You think fast mining makes you invincible, Chu Jianghe? Lin Tianjiao sneered. Combat relies on fighting strength. Zombies are slow, clumsy targets on the battlefield. Lin Tianjiao quietly pulled out his communicator and sent a message. Uncle, have you finished your arrangement? A cold line of text appeared on the blue screen. Rest assured, I have tampered with Chu Jianghe's assessment plane. Instead of zero-tier monsters, he will face a highly dangerous first-tier goblin tribe with 3,000 warriors. His zombies will be slaughtered to the last, and his realm origin will be shattered. Lin Tianjiao put away the communicator, spreading a cruel grin across his face. The assessment begins. Su Qingshue's voice echoed across the hall. Every student immediately ordered their vassals to march through the planar gateways. Images flickered constantly across the giant screen. Suddenly, a shout erupted from the crowd. Look, check Chu Jianghe's feed. Every gaze snapped over. Chu Jianghe's live window was automatically enlarged by the mainframe and projected front and center. The footage showed his 1,000 zombies emerging not in an ordinary monster encampment. They materialized within a sprawling mountain valley. Thousands of green-skinned creatures surrounded them on all sides. Many wielded rusted iron swords and spears, while hundreds of archers stood positioned on the high ground. A first-tier goblin tribe. 3,000 fully armed goblins? How can anyone fight this? Has the system malfunctioned? This difficulty is far beyond what a novice can handle. Commotion swept through the crowd. Su Qingshue's face paled. She rushed toward the control console at once. Mainframe. Immediately terminate Chu Jianghe's assessment. Force his vassals to withdraw. Warning. Plane sealed. Forced withdrawal operation failed. The mainframe emitted its cold alert tone. Lin Tianjiao sighed with feigned concern beside her. What terrible luck for Chu Jianghe. 3,000 first-tier goblins. His 1,000 zombies likely won't survive 3 minutes. Such a shame. He only just claimed first place in resource collection, and now his realm will be destroyed. Su Qingxue stared rigidly at the screen, her hands clenched tight with anxiety. Inside the plane, Chu Jianghe hovered high in the sky, gazing down at the 3,000 goblins closing in to encircle his army. He felt no panic. Instead, he smiled. Lin Tianjiao, this is the trick you chose to play. He looked out at the robust goblins, greed lighting up his eyes. I was just wondering where I could find more recruits. Thank you for this gift. Down below, the goblin chieftain raised his greatsword and let out a thunderous roar. Loose arrows. Hundreds of crude wooden arrows launched skyward, pouring down like rain onto the zombie horde. Thud, thud, thud. The arrows pierced zombie bodies, sticking in shoulders, driving straight through eye sockets. Several zombies were impaled through the torso by spears. Students in the hall shook their heads one after another. We're doomed. Zombies are slow to begin with. We don't stand a chance now. Yet the next second, everyone was utterly stunned. On the screen, the zombies pierced through the hearts and eye sockets did not collapse. They did not even falter for a single moment. Roar. First-tier berserk zombies let out earth-shaking roars. Boosted by a 1,000 speed increase from Zeal of the Dead, they turned into streaks of dark red shadows, charging headlong through the arrow range straight toward the goblin formation. A zombie's chest was pierced by a goblin spear. Instead of retreating, it seized the shaft with both hands and pulled hard. The spear drove straight through its back, and using that momentum, the zombie lunged right at the goblin. It opened its fanged maw and sank its teeth deep into the goblin's neck. Rip! A huge chunk of flesh tore free. The goblin screamed in agony, clutching its bleeding neck as it crumpled to the ground, twitching briefly before falling still. Inside the hall, Lin Tianjiao sneered. So they killed one. 1,000 against 3,000. They'll be worn down eventually. But Chu Jianghe's voice blared clearly across the venue through the live feed at that moment. That's all. Whose goblins are these? They break far too easily. On screen, the recently slain goblin's body suddenly convulsed violently. Its skin quickly turned ashen, flecked with livor mortis. Its eyes flew open, pupils blazing scarlet. Absolute assimilation activated. This goblin zombie staggered to its feet. It picked up a wooden club from the ground, spun around, and smashed the skull of its former companion beside it. Crunch. Brain matter splattered everywhere. Another goblin fell. 3 seconds later, a second goblin zombie rose. Slay, assimilate. Slay again, assimilate again. The valley instantly turned into a living hell for the goblins. Chu Jianghe's zombies required no defense. They charged through blades and spears alike. So long as they broke the enemy's skin with a bite or an iron blade cut, assimilation began to spread. 1 turned 10, 10 turned 100. The goblin chieftain watched in horror as his subordinates dwindled, while the red-eyed monsters opposite multiplied. Monsters! Run! Flee! The chieftain broke, dropping his blade and turning to run. A towering berserk zombie leaped high and cleaved the chieftain in two with one strike. 10 minutes. Merely 10 minutes. All 3,000 goblins lay defeated. The valley teemed with densely packed zombies. Besides the original 1,000 berserk zombies, more than 2,000 newly converted goblin zombies had joined their ranks. Instead of losing troops, his forces had tripled. Silence blanketed the hall. No one spoke. Only the sound of countless gasps echoed. What kind of terrifying unit was this? Growing stronger with every battle? Turning enemy corpses straight into your own soldiers? How could anyone fight against that? Lin Tianjiao's legs buckled. He slumped onto the floor, his face drained of all color, his mind gone blank. Amazed light shimmered in Su Qingshue's beautiful eyes. She finally understood. Chu Jianghe had awakened no worthless race. He commanded a catastrophe capable of sweeping across the divine realm. The simulation pod hissed open. Chu Jianghe stepped out. He walked straight over to Lin Tianjiao, gazing down at him from above. Lin Tianjiao. Chu Jianghe's voice was quiet, yet it sent chills through everyone present. I heard the reward for first place in this assessment is a rare divine shard sponsored by your Lin clan. Chu Jianghe held out his hand, his gaze frigid. Hand it over. A deathly hush hung over the holographic viewing hall. Every gaze locked onto the two men facing off. One was the being who had turned an unwinnable assessment into a massacre in 10 short minutes. The other was the noble heir collapsed on the ground, paler than any zombie. Lin Tianjiao's lips trembled as he stared at Chu Jianghe's outstretched hand, his mind reeling. The rare divine shard. It was not his personal possession. His clan had bestowed it upon him as a trump card to secure a top 3 ranking in the midterm assessment. It held the key to igniting his divine flame in the future. Give it away? Impossible. Chu Jianghe, don't push your luck. Lin Tianjiao snarled with bluster, scrambling upright to cling to what little dignity remained. The wager during the assessment was nothing but a joke. Do you really take it seriously? I take it seriously, Chu Jianghe replied simply, his hand still extended without the slightest waver. You. Lin Tianjiao's face flushed then paled. Let me warn you, the Lin clan has a true god backing us. Lay a finger on me today, and your divine domain will turn to cosmic dust tomorrow. He brought forth his final trump card. A true god, beings far above demigods, overlords who looked down upon the starry skies. Pity flickered in the students' eyes as they looked toward Chu Jianghe. No matter how outstanding his talent, what chance did an unseasoned genius stand against a powerful clan and a true deity? He was as fragile as paper. Enough. A cold voice cut through the tension. Tutor Su Qingxue stepped between them. She studied Chu Jianghe intently, her expression complex, admiration, wariness, and a hint of persuasion all mingled within. Lin Tianjiao, reneging on your word publicly is shameful. Apologize to Chu Jianghe. Gritting his teeth, Lin Tianjiao bowed reluctantly. I'm sorry. Su Qingxue then turned to Chu Jianghe, softening her tone. Chu Jianghe, let this matter rest. The Lin clan is not an enemy you can afford. As compensation, I will personally reward you 100,000 divine coins, and the school will prioritize resource allocations for you. Treat that divine shard as nothing more than idle banter. Let it go. She sought to mediate and to protect Chu Jianghe. Everyone believed this was the optimal outcome, except the wealth and end the conflict. Chu Jianghe fell silent. The air around him seemed to solidify. Just as Lin Tianjiao thought he would yield, Chu Jianghe lowered his hand. He looked at Su Qingxue and nodded calmly. Very well. I shall heed my tutor. Lin Tianjiao heaved a massive sigh. Venomous contempt crept back onto his face. Just as expected, a coward at heart. One mention of a true god, and he backed down obediently. Su Qingxue breathed out in relief and patted Chu Jianghe's shoulder. You possess immense potential. Do not ruin your future over momentary impulse. Chu Jianghe said nothing more and turned to leave the hall. The crowd parted automatically to clear a path, each person watching him with a mix of awe and unease. Staring at Chu Jianghe's retreating back, Lin Tianjiao curled his lips into a cruel smirk. Just you wait, Chu Jianghe. The humiliation you brought me today, I will repay it tenfold, 100-fold. 11 o'clock at night. Inside Chu Jianghe's dormitory, he sat cross-legged on his bed, his expression calm as still water. Everything that had unfolded that day was merely another commonplace incident born from survival in the apocalypse. Threats, betrayal, the law of the jungle. He had witnessed all of it countless times. The first rule the apocalypse had taught him: never leave a threat to linger until tomorrow. He opened his divine interface and accessed the Federal Codex of Divine Laws. Buried among countless clauses, he found an option most novice gods overlooked, even feared. Divine Domain Border War. It was an ironclad law established by the Federation to resolve irreconcilable conflicts between gods. Once initiated, the two divine domains would be forcibly drawn together, locked in a fight to the death. The defeated party faced a shattered domain, the annihilation of all followers, and even severe damage to their own divine soul. The victor gained legal right to seize everything belonging to the loser. The conditions to initiate it were brutally strict. A colossal sum of divine coins had to be paid, and concrete evidence proving the opposing party endangered one's own divine domain was mandatory. Chu Jianghe pulled up the combat logs from the afternoon assessment. Record: Plane Serial S-345 tampered with by unknown divine power. Assessment difficulty abnormally elevated to extreme danger. Divine power traced to the Lin Consortium, Lin Chongfeng demigod. Lin Tianjiao's second uncle had not covered his tracks fully. This was his evidence. Request initiation of Divine Domain Border War. Target: Lin Tianjiao, Class 1, Senior Grade 3. Reason: the opposing party maliciously tampered with the assessment plane, plotting murder, gravely threatening the safety of my divine domain. Application received. Evidence verified and approved. Initiating a divine domain border war requires a security deposit of 50,000 divine coins, refunded upon victory. Proceed with payment? Glancing at the 156,000 divine coins newly credited to his account, Chu Jianghe selected yes, without hesitation. Payment successful. The divine domain border war will forcibly commence in 10 minutes. Prepare accordingly. With that done, Chu Jianghe sent his consciousness into his divine domain. Beneath an excavated mountain, 4,000 zombies stood motionless. 1,000 burly first-tier berserk zombies armed with iron blades. Over 2,000 goblin zombies wielding spears, their eyes scarlet. Time to collect new troops. Chu Jianghe's icy divine decree echoed across the entire domain. Elsewhere, within Lin Tianjiao's divine domain, a vast grassland stretched out, with a settlement built from massive stones and timber standing at its center. Lin Tianjiao sat upon a beast-skin throne. More than 800 remaining orc followers knelt before him. These orcs were elite warriors handpicked by his clan at great expense, each possessing peak first-tier combat power. A pack of useless trash, unable to even perform well during an assessment. Lin Tianjiao flew into a rage and smashed a wine cup against the ground, venting his frustration from earlier that day. At that instant, a shrill alarm blared across every corner of his domain. Warning! Warning! Divinity Chu Jianghe has declared a divine domain border war against you. Hostilities begin in 9 minutes. This is a binding war authenticated by the federal mainframe. Refusal or evasion is impossible. Lin Tianjiao shot to his feet. Fury instantly gave way to shock and disbelief. A divine domain border war? Chu Jianghe? Has he lost his mind? How dared he? How dared he volunteer for such a devastating conflict? After a brief moment of panic, Lin Tianjiao steadied himself and broke into a vicious grin. Excellent. What a fool rushing toward his own doom. I could not strike at you openly for fear of clan repercussions, yet you stretch your neck out to me of your own free will. Do not blame me then. Murderous light glinted in Lin Tianjiao's eyes. My domain is the second-tier fertile grassland. Its domain barriers are 10 times thicker than his starting domain. My orcs are elite, fully equipped. On his territory, each can take on 10 foes. All orcs, assemble at the domain border immediately. Prepare for battle. Lin Tianjiao brimmed with confidence. In his view, Chu Jianghe was walking straight into annihilation. Soon, 10 minutes passed. Rumble, Lin Tianjiao's domain shuddered violently. An invisible force tore a massive rift open in the sky. Beyond the rift lay Chu Jianghe's desolate, gray domain, ruined save for one enormous mining pit. At this moment, the two worlds were forcibly linked. Lin Tianjiao stood at his domain's boundary, gazing toward the empty pit opposite, and shouted mockingly. Chu Jianghe, come out and face your death. Today I will show you what true divine warfare looks like. No sooner had the words left his mouth. Pairs of scarlet eyes lit up within the bottomless mining pit. Then 10 pairs, 100 pairs, 1,000 pairs. Countless red pinpricks, like will-o'-the-wisps from hell, filled the entire pit in an instant. Roar! Amid the thunderous howls, a dark red tide surged forth from the pit. 1,000 berserk zombies led the charge, followed by more than 2,000 goblin zombies. Boosted by the tenfold speed bonus of Zeal of the Dead, they became 4,000 blurred shadows, crossing the domain border and sweeping toward Lin Tianjiao's orc settlement like a tsunami. No formation, no elaborate tactics. Only the most primal, savage tactic. Overwhelm everything. Lin Tianjiao's grin froze on his face. His 800 elite orcs stared at the incoming scarlet horde. Their hands gripping battle axes trembled uncontrollably. This cannot be happening the next moment. The zombie tide swallowed everything. Screams, snarls, and the crack of breaking bones echoed across the grassland. A strong orc warrior could cleave through 3 to 5 goblin zombies with one axe swing. Yet moments later, 10, 20 zombies would leap onto him, tearing him apart with claws and fangs. Less than 3 minutes into combat, the orc defensive line collapsed. Lin Tianjiao watched in horror as his followers were dragged into the horde, devoured, before staggering back to their feet to join the enemy ranks. His soldiers dwindled. Chu Jianghe's soldiers multiplied. Desperation clamped tight around his throat. No, stop! Lin Tianjiao crumpled to the ground, consumed by despair. Right then, a colossal icy phantom, akin to a god, slowly materialized above the zombie tide. Chu Jianghe's will descended. Ignoring Lin Tianjiao's continuous screams and pleas for mercy, his giant hand pierced the domain barrier. He reached for the pulsing crystal core at the settlement's heart, the source of the domain's essence. He seized the core and squeezed hard. Crack! A fissure spread across the crystal. A brilliant golden ray shimmering with immortal radiance was wrenched free from the crack. The rare divine shard. And lo, Lin Tianjiao let out a scream of despair. He snatched an ancient rune-carved jade pendant from his robes and crushed it. Ancestor, save me! The instant the jade shattered, an immense, boundless pressure far surpassing demigod power descended from the endless void. It locked firmly onto Chu Jianghe's divine domain. A true god had intervened. The moment that vast pressure descended, the entire connected space froze. Winds stilled across the grasslands of Lin Tianjiao's domain. The zombies' roars fell silent, and light itself appeared suspended mid-air. This was power transcending demigods, the power of a true god. Will-shaped law. That frigid, enraged will targeted Chu Jianghe's giant hand clutching the crystal core, intent on crushing both it and the entire domain into dust. Ecstasy flared across Lin Tianjiao's despair-stricken face. He shrieked, "Ancestor! Kill him! Kill Chu Jianghe!" But just as that divine power prepared to crash down, a scarlet alarm, colder and more imposing than the true God's will, boomed through both domains. Warning: detection of true God-tier divine power unlawfully interfering in a federally authenticated war between apprentice divinities. Highest clause of the Federal New God Protection Act activated. Federal mainframe intervening. Forcible expulsion of unauthorized divine power. Violator Lin Songyuan issued formal warning. Repeat violations will result in summons before the divine tribunal. An invisible golden light barrier emerged from the void, an unbreakable divine shield that instantly blocked the terrifying true God pressure in full. The immense will faltered, shaken by utter astonishment. It had not anticipated the federal mainframe responding so swiftly and decisively. A mere ant who has yet to ignite his divine flame dares to defy me. An ancient, wrathful thought exploded inside Chu Jianghe's mind. Chu Jianghe's manifested will phantom did not sway in the slightest. His face remained devoid of expression. The giant hand gripping the crystal core tightened its grasp once more. Crack, crack. Fissures spread wildly across Lin Tianjiao's domain core. How dare you? The true gods will roared. Chu Jianghe answered with action. He squeezed with all his might. Bang! The crystal core shattered completely. A strand of light brighter than pure gold and more radiant than starlight was torn from the broken core by Chu Jianghe's well-formed giant hand. The rare divine shard. It was his. And lo, Lin Tianjiao let out a piercing wail. He watched helplessly as the divine fragment was seized, feeling as if a piece of his own soul had been ripped away. With his domain core shattered, his path to divinity was broken. Until he could reforge the core, he was powerless. The true gods will churned violently within the void. Ultimately, it chose not to clash head-on against the federal mainframe. It left only a venomous curse. Brat, I shall remember you. You will know no peace beneath heaven and above earth. As the words faded, the terrifying pressure receded like a tide. Flow returned to the world once more. Without emotion, Chu Jianghe merged the divine shard into his will phantom. Divine domain border war concluded. Verdict: Divinity, Chu Jianghe victorious. Per federal law, the victor may claim 50 of all unclaimed resources within defeated divinity Lin Tianjiao's domain. Remaining followers and resources will be forcibly evacuated. Following the mainframe's notification, half of everything across Lin Tianjiao's crumbling fertile grassland, the bodies of orcs not yet assimilated, mineral veins, vegetation, turned into flecks of light and streamed into Chu Jianghe's domain. Lin Tianjiao himself, alongside his broken domain, was swept away by a beam of light and vanished. Nothing but wreckage remained on the spot. Chu Jianghe's will phantom slowly dissipated, and his consciousness returned to his dormitory. Federal Number 1 Senior High, Principal's Office. An elderly white-haired man stared at the final report on the war displayed on the screen, his brows tightly furrowed. Beside him, Su Qingshua's expression was equally grave. Principal, regarding the Lin family. Humph. That old fox Lin Songyuan messaged me directly. The old principal snorted coldly. He demanded to know why I didn't punish Chu Jianghe severely, and threatened to leverage the Lin Consortium's influence within the Ministry of Education. What shall we do then? Su Qingxue asked with worry. What is there to fear? The old principal slammed his palm on the desk. Chu Jianghe filed for the War of Divine Realms. The evidence is conclusive, and all procedures were legitimate. Lin Tianjiao struck underhandedly and lost after being outmatched. How can she blame anyone? If Lin Songyuan dares to target protected students, the federal mainframe will not spare him. The old principal paused, then sighed. Still, they dare not act openly, yet covert schemes will be hard to guard against. This boy is an unparalleled genius, but also a magnet for endless trouble. He turned towards Su Qingxue. Initiate the S-Class Genius Protection Protocol. In addition, issue an order. All future resource applications submitted by Chu Jianghe will go through my special channel for direct approval. Understood. Su Qingxue nodded, a flicker of wonder flashing across her eyes. The S-Class Genius Protection Protocol had last been activated 30 years ago. Inside Chu Jianghe's dormitory, he sat cross-legged on his bed, oblivious to the storm brewing outside. He opened his personal terminal, and as expected, the campus forum was in an uproar. Breaking news. Chu Jianghe from Class 1, Senior Grade 3 fought Lin Tianjiao in a Divine Realm war. Lin Tianjiao's Divine Realm has been destroyed. True Divinity intervened and received a warning from the federal mainframe. A sensational scoop. Internal source. The Lin family has posted a 5 million divine coin bounty on the black market for Chu Jianghe's divine realm coordinates. Chu Jianghe skimmed the posts and closed the interface. To him, all of this was merely noise. His experiences in the apocalypse had taught him that only power held firmly in one's own hands was real. His consciousness sank into his divine realm. Boom. Rumble. Massive transformations were unfolding within the divine realm at this very moment. The rare divine shard hovered at the center like a miniature sun, radiating soft light that continuously merged into the barren gray land. The desolate territory, originally spanning merely 1 square kilometer, expanded visibly before his eyes. 2, 3, 5, 8. The expansion finally halted once the entire divine realm stretched across 10 square kilometers. The sky was no longer lifeless gray, tinged with a faint crimson hue. The ground was no longer nothing but rock and barren, or growing thicker and more solid. Notification: your divine realm has absorbed a rare divine shard. Territory multiplied tenfold. Notification: your SSS tier talent Endless Zombie Horde has received a minor enhancement. Chu Jianghe immediately checked his talent panel. Endless Zombie Horde Trait 1 Absolute Assimilation. Any creature slain or bitten by zombies undergoes 100 conversion into a zombie, retaining 75 of its original combat power and all innate skills. Conversion fidelity increased by 5. Trait 2 Undead Fervor. All subordinates gain plus 1,000 movement and work speed, perpetually maintaining peak condition, immune to fatigue and endurance loss. No change. Trait 3 Flesh Ascension. Zombies may evolve infinitely through consuming high-tier divine artifacts or flesh. No change. A5 boost to retain combat power, not bad. Chu Jianghe was satisfied. This meant the quality of his zombie cannon fodder would keep rising from now on. He shifted his gaze to the altar at the center of the divine realm, the anchor point for his divine avatar. Around the altar lay piles of broken flesh and bones of beastmen seized during the war with Lin Tianjiao. These were leftover scraps torn apart mid-battle, too damaged to complete assimilation. Just as Chu Jianghe prepared to order his zombies to devour the remains, a new system prompt appeared, detecting large quantities of unclaimed flesh offerings. Would you like to sacrifice them to the altar to generate slaughter points? Slaughter points? A thought crossed Chu Jianghe's mind, and he selected yes. Instantly, runes lit up across the altar. An invisible force swept over the area, turning every scrap of flesh into streams of crimson energy that surged into the altar. On Chu Jianghe's deity panel, a brand new stat appeared beside faith points. Faith points, 0. Slaughter points, 208,450. Notification: since your subordinates are soulless undead, they cannot generate faith. Slaughter, terror inflicted, and destruction wrought in battle will be converted into slaughter points. Slaughter points may substitute faith points for divine realm construction and subordinate spawning. So that was how it worked. Chu Jianghe saw the light. This completely resolved his biggest weakness. He immediately examined the altar's new functions. Subordinate spawning: spawn 0 tier basic zombie, 100 slaughter points per unit. With over 200,000 slaughter points, he could spawn more than 2,000 new zombies. Spawn 2,000 units. Chu Jianghe issued the command without hesitation. Brilliant light erupted from the altar, surging slaughter points pouring into the lands of the divine realm. Gurgle, gurgle. The ground of the divine realm bubbled like boiling mire. Mounds of earth rose one after another. The next instant, pale arms burst out from beneath the soil, followed by rotting heads and broken bodies. 2,000 brand new bare basic zombies staggered out of the earth and merged into the silent horde below. 1,000 enraged zombies. More than 2,000 goblin zombies. 800 newly converted beastman zombies. Alongside these 2,000 newly spawned zombies, the total number of his undead army was now close to 7,000. Staring at the dense swarm of undead, Chu Jianghe felt an unprecedented sense of fulfillment. At that moment, his wrist-mounted personal terminal vibrated. Trade alert. Your buy order for refined first-tier iron ingots posted on the Deity Trade Network has been canceled by the seller. Trade alert. Your buy order for 10,000 damaged weapons has been canceled by the seller. A string of cancellation notifications flooded the screen. Chu Jianghe's gaze turned cold. The Lin family's material blockade had begun. His troop strength had just surged, and he urgently needed massive supplies of weaponry to equip his new recruits and turn them into a viable fighting force. Trying to strangle my development? A cold smirk tugged at Chu Jianghe's lips. The official trade network was controlled by wealthy clans, yet he was not limited to that single path. He connected his consciousness to the deity network, skillfully bypassing layers of encryption to access a dark web interface decorated with skulls, blood, and chaotic code. The interstellar black market. Here, anyone with sufficient funds and strength could purchase anything, even the life of a god. Ignoring pop-ups selling slaves and forbidden knowledge, Chu Jianghe clicked on a blood-stained arena icon. Death Coliseum, a wealth grinder built from blood and corpses. It was also the fastest route to acquire resources and armaments. Chu Jianghe glanced at the more than 100,000 divine coins remaining in his account, his eyes icy. He tapped register to participate. A portal selection popped up. Tier 1 Arena. The Flesh Mill entry fee. 10,000 divine coins. Mode. 100-man free-for-all. Participants are randomly transported to a sealed plane. The final survivor claims all wealth and equipment belonging to the defeated competitors. Chu Jianghe's gaze swept over his 7,000 troops. A blockade. He smiled. Then I'll simply strip equipment off others. He paid the entry fee without the slightest hesitation. A dark red portal reeking of thick blood slowly materialized above his divine realm. The stench of blood. An overwhelming metallic tang mixed with the acrid odor of burning divine power drifted through the portal, washing over him. Chu Jianghe's consciousness avatar descended onto a dark red floating platform suspended in the void. Beneath the platform stretched endless darkness, like the maw of a colossal beast. Hanging above the platform were distorted light screens broadcasting non-stop footage of brutal battles unfolding across countless planes. Dragons torn apart by demons, angels overwhelmed by swarms of insects. Here, there were no rules, no mercy, only the unvarnished law of survival of the fittest. This was the interstellar black market's death coliseum. Ignoring the roaring spectators and betting screens all around, Chu Jianghe walked straight toward a registration counter built from black stone. Codename, a hoarse, emotionless voice echoed from behind the stone counter. Tyrant. Codename, Tyrant, registered successfully. Matching opponents for Tier 1 Arena, the Flesh Mill. Match complete. Opponent, codename Caesar. Combat record, 3 wins, 0 losses. The 100-man free-for-all commences in 3 minutes. Please wait at Portal C7. Chu Jianghe turned and headed for the designated portal. Just as he was about to step through, an arrogant mental transmission resounded directly inside his mind. Hey, rookie tyrant. Listen up. I'm your opponent, Caesar. If you know what's good for you, surrender right now and transfer your entry fee to me. I'll let you leave with your dignity intact. Otherwise, once we enter the mill, I will crush every single one of your subordinates before destroying your divine realm altar. Chu Jianghe kept walking forward, acting as if he had heard nothing. Threats of this caliber were nothing more than meaningless noise, even back in the apocalypse. Foolish brat. The mental transmission turned furious before cutting off. Light flashed before the portal, and Chu Jianghe's figure vanished. The Flesh Mill Plain. A desolate wasteland beneath 3 pale moons hanging low in the sky. Hundreds of pillars of light descended from above, scattering across the wasteland. The light faded, revealing countless deity consciousness avatars with varied expressions. Chu Jianghe scanned his surroundings. Most deities looked tense and wary, keeping their distance from one another. Only one young man stood out. Clad in ornate golden divine armor, his face filled with haughtiness, he surveyed the field as if staring at garbage. It was Caesar, who had just sent the mental message. Caesar's gaze quickly locked onto Chu Jianghe, whose aura appeared unremarkable. A cruel smirk curled his lips. Everyone, I claim this newcomer as my opening target today. The moment his words fell, he unfurled his divine realm projection. Boom. A vast grassland realm brimming with life, far larger than the wasteland beneath them, materialized. Then the ground began to shake. 500 imposing figures clad in heavy armor and wielding lances charged out of his divine realm. They possessed powerful human torsos and muscular equine lower bodies, each radiating power far exceeding that of first-tier units. Second-tier elite units, centaurs. It's Caesar. His family supplied him with 500 centaurs. Damn it, we run into a whale player right at the start. Second-tier troops against us first-tier deities. How can we compete? Panic rippled through the surrounding deities. Many paled, some already considering retreat. Caesar savored the undivided attention, his gaze condescendingly fixed on Chu Jianghe as he called out. Rookie, you can still regret it now? Kneel and surrender, and I might spare your life, only wiping out all your subordinates. Chu Jianghe finally reacted. He lifted his eyes and glanced at the 500 charging centaurs. Good raw materials. That was his only thought. The next second, Chu Jianghe unfolded his own divine realm projection. A gray wasteland spanning nearly 10 square kilometers, with a massive, bottomless mine pit at its heart. Compared to Caesar's vibrant grassland realm, it looked like nothing more than a junkyard. Uft! Ha! What is this? A mining pit. Caesar burst into laughter, and many other deities joined in the jeering. Such barren starting divine realms only appeared as negative textbook examples. However, their laughter died instantly. Roar! Thunderous howls erupted from deep within the mine pit. A crimson tide surged out onto the surface. 1,000 enraged zombies, 3,000 goblin zombies, 800 newly converted beastman zombies, plus 2,000 basic zombies. Nearly 7,000 undead creatures packed the small realm, their scarlet eyes merging into an ocean of despair, all fixed firmly on the centaur army ahead. They wore no armor, wielded no refined weapons. Many did not even possess intact flesh. Yet the pure, bloodthirsty madness emanating from them seemed to drag the temperature of the wasteland plummeting. Caesar's smile froze. How could there be such a staggering number? Empty intimidation. He quickly regained his composure, disdain returning to his eyes. A horde of trash without armor. Quantity means nothing. A single charge from my centaurs can crush 1,000 of them. Centaurs, charge! He issued his order. For glory! The 500 centaurs roared in unison. Hooves hammered the earth as they formed a flawless wedge charge formation, acting like mobile steel fortresses hurtling toward the seemingly vulnerable zombie horde. The ground trembled beneath their advance. Faced with this destructive momentum capable of flattening hills, Chu Jianghe issued but one command to his realm. Engulf them. Roar. Boosted by the tenfold movement speed of undead fervor, nearly 7,000 zombies transformed into a surging crimson tsunami, charging forward fearlessly. No formation, no refined tactics. Only brutal, primitive collision. Boom. The vanguard centaurs drove forward like red-hot blades cutting through butter, instantly smashing hundreds of basic zombies to pieces. Limbs and flesh flew everywhere. A cruel grin spread across Caesar's face. See this? This is the gap between tiers. Yet his smile lasted less than a single second. The shattered zombies failed to halt the rest of the horde. More zombies swarmed forward like rabid beasts. They ignored sharp lances piercing their bodies, their sole goal to latch onto the centaurs. One centaur impaled 5 goblin zombies with its spear, yet 10, 20 more zombies clung to its hooves and torso from every direction. Get off me, you vermin! The centaur warrior roared, struggling to break free. Zombie claws dug deep into its flesh, teeth gnawing relentlessly at its heavy plate armor. Crack! A beastman zombie bit a jagged crack into the leg armor of one centaur warrior. A trickle of blood seeped out. The next instant, absolute assimilation triggered. The struggling centaur froze mid-motion. Pride and rage faded from its eyes, replaced by lifeless scarlet. Groan, an inhuman growl rumbled in its throat. It twisted its lance away from the zombie horde and drove it straight into the chest of a nearby comrade. Colin, what are you doing? The wounded centaur stared at its ally in disbelief. Its answer was Colin's already rotting face and a renewed frenzy of biting. The first conversion, the second, the third. Every scratch or bite drawing blood unleashed the horrifying zombie plague in an instant. The elite centaur army began collapsing from within. No, this cannot be. What kind of monsters are these? All color drained from Caesar's face. He watched in horror as his pride and joyful army fell one after another, like dominoes. Then they rose again, transformed into enemies. Less than 3 minutes into the battle, not a single living centaur remained on the battlefield. In their place stood 500 figures with scarlet eyes and tattered flesh, the zombie centaurs. They retained 75 of their original combat power thanks to absolute assimilation. Empowered by undead fervor, their speed and bloodlust far surpassed their living forms. Roar! The 500 zombie centaurs turned as one, their crimson gaze locking onto the golden figure stunned on the far side of the wasteland. Caesar shuddered, overcome by icy dread. He watched his once proud army turn into avenging fiends charging straight for him. No, stay away. He scrambled frantically toward his divine realm altar, attempting to seal the planar passage. But it was already too late. Boosted far beyond their original speed, the zombie centaurs raced forward like 500 streaks of crimson lightning. They overtook Caesar and slammed violently against the altar of his lush grassland divine realm. Boom, boom, boom. His former guardians had become ruthless destroyers. Caesar watched helplessly as cracks spread across his divine realm core beneath the relentless assault, until crack. It shattered completely. Ding. Deity Caesar eliminated. Divine realm destroyed. Congratulations, Tyrant. You are the ultimate victor of the flesh mill. You claim all wealth, equipment, and subordinates belonging to all defeated competitors. A string of cold system notifications echoed out. The consciousness avatars of the other 90-plus deities on the wasteland dissolved into motes of light. Their entry fees and portions of resources stored within their divine realms flowed toward Chu Jianghe's deity panel as streams of golden data. Meanwhile, the 500 zombie centaurs, along with their intact second-tier standard heavy armor and lances, were formally marked as subordinates belonging to Tyrant. Divine coin balance, +1, 450,000. Chu Jianghe's account instantly gained more than 1.45 million divine coins. Combined with the 100,000 he already held, his total assets exceeded 1.5 million. More importantly, he now commanded a brand new, powerful heavy cavalry unit of 500 second-tier undead warriors. A blockade. Chu Jianghe stared at the newly formed undead cavalry within his divine realm, a cold curve tugging at his lips. He no longer needed to purchase equipment. Stripping it off enemies was far faster. He was preparing to exit the Colosseum when a private message, not sent by the main system, forced itself to pop up. The sender bore a blood skull avatar with the title Colosseum Steward Number 3. The message contained only a single sentence. You possess extraordinary abilities. Would you be interested in working for us? A bloodied skull avatar carried a tone of condescending scrutiny. Work for you? Chu Jianghe's consciousness stared indifferently at the message. After 3 years struggling through the apocalypse, he understood one truth above all. When a wolf extends an olive branch, it either wants to turn you into its hound, or thinks you are not fat enough yet, and intends to fatten you up first. He did not even bother replying. Faced with the interface awaiting his response from the steward, Chu Jianghe tapped directly on another option. Initiate new match. Buzz. Lights signifying a fresh match instantly washed over the private message sent by Steward Number 3 of the arena. Behind the Blackstone registration desk, the owner of the gravelly voice, Steward Number 3, stiffened visibly. A bloody rejected alert popped harshly across the light screen before him. Moments later came the system's frigid announcement. Codename, Tyrant, entering the second round of the meat grinder. Quite the temper. Steward Number 3 let out a cold laugh, his gaze darkening. He had seen countless prodigies within this arena, yet never had he met such an ungrateful newcomer. He was eager to see just how long this so-called tyrant could afford to be arrogant. Second round, the meat grinder. The battlefield shifted to a murky swamp. Chu Jianghe's opponent was a deity whose divine kin were swamp murlocs. More than 300 murlocs wielding bone tridents, reeking of rot, surged out of the mire with wild cries. Submerge them. Chu Jianghe's divine edict remained concise as ever. Roar. The response from his corpse horde roared even fiercer than the last battle. 500 heavy armored zombie centaurs charged forward to form a razor-sharp spearhead. Once elite heavy cavalry, they had fallen into one death. The instinct to charge remained etched into their bones, and bolstered by zeal of the departed, they moved faster and struck with greater impact than in life. Boom. Iron hooves of the heavy cavalry crushed the soft mud. A black tide of steel smashed straight through the fragile murloc formation. Bone tridents could not leave so much as a scratch on their second-tier heavy armor before their wielders were sent flying and trampled to pieces along with their weapons. Thousands of zombie infantry surged forward in their wake, swallowing the disorganized remaining murlocs entirely. The battle ended within 1 minute. Absolute assimilation activated. 300 murlocs with bloodshot eyes staggered to their feet, transforming into zombie murlocs and merging into the corpse horde. They retained their innate agility to traverse swamps, becoming perfect forward scouts and cannon fodder. Ding. Codename, Tyrant, victory in round 2. Matching for round 3. In the spectator district of the arena, the bustling betting light screens fell silent for a heartbeat. Everyone watched the overwhelming display unfold. Damn. Second-tier centaurs. Where did this newcomer come from? That's odd. He only had zombie infantry in the last match. Could it be he assimilated Caesar's centaurs? A chilling suspicion took root in every gambler's mind. Meanwhile, Steward Number 3's expression darkened further, shifting from sullen to grave. He stared rigidly at the light screen as Chu Jianghe queued up for the third match without hesitation. I refuse to believe you have no limits. Third round. Opponent, 500 second-tier lycanthropes, famed for speed and razor claws. Within Chu Jianghe's divine realm, 300 zombie goblin spearmen struck first. Volleys of poison-tipped bone spears blanketed the Lycan's path of charge. The lycanthropes charged onward regardless of casualties, only to be blocked firmly by a front line of bulkier zombie orcs and zombie centaurs. Then the corpse horde swept over them. 5 minutes later, codename Tyrant, victory in round 3. 500 new zombie lycanthropes joined Chu Jianghe's ranks. They retained their living speed, forming the sharpest flanking blades of the corpse horde. 4th round. Opponent, 800 dwarf musketeers holding high ground, unleashing ferocious firepower. Chu Jianghe dispensed with elaborate tactics entirely. He sent his most resilient zombie centaurs to the vanguard, charging headlong through the hail of musket fire. Musket rounds sparked against heavy plate, yet failed to pierce the armor effectively. Once the distance closed, a one-sided massacre ensued. 10 minutes later, codename Tyrant, victory in round 4. 800 zombie dwarf marksmen, muskets in hand and eyes glowing crimson, swelled the ranks of the horde. 5th round. Opponent, 1,000 first-tier jungle elf archers. Agile and precise, they attempted to wear enemies down with guerrilla hit-and-run tactics. Yet bolstered by the tenfold speed boost of zeal of the departed, the zombies moved faster than the elves. When the first elf archer was tackled, her throat torn open, then rose shakily to draw her bow against her former kin, the outcome of the battle was already sealed. Codename Tyrant, victory in round 5. For the first time, Chu Jianghe's legion gained precise long-range units. 1,000 zombie elf archers. Their faces rotted and their gazes hollow, yet they drew their bows with steady, flawless form, even colder and more unyielding than they had been in life. 6th round. Victory. 7th round. Victory. 8th round. Victory. The entire Tier 1 zone of the death arena descended into chaos. Every spectator light screen switched to the same live feed. On display, the newcomer codenamed Tyrant conducted a bloody parade incomprehensible to all who watched. His army snowballed, growing larger battle after battle. His troop roster expanded from basic infantry to heavy cavalry, long-range marksmen, and flanking assault units. The ace units of his opponents became his weapons by the next match. A monster. This man is an absolute monster. Stop betting. Anyone who wagers against Tyrant is a fool. My divine coins. I've lost everything I own. Wails echoed from the gamblers. Mockery turned to shock, then raw terror. They watched his winning streak climb, as if witnessing the rise of a god. Behind the Blackstone registration desk, beads of sweat dotted steward number 3's forehead. All emotion drained from his face, leaving only sheer horror. Data analyses concerning Tyrant refreshed frantically across the light screen behind him. Troop assimilation rate, 100. Combat strength conversion rate, estimated above 75. Troop diversity, continuously rising. Divine power consumption, extremely low. Comprehensive evaluation, extremely hazardous. Surpassing grade S. Recommend immediate report to headquarters. Gulp. Steward number 3 swallowed hard. He wished to force an end to the matching process, yet discovered his authority was insufficient. The arena's rules were ironclad. As long as participants were willing and could pay the entry fee, they could fight endlessly. And every victory earned Tyrant astronomical wealth. He had no shortage of entry fees. An unstoppable perpetual war machine. 9th round. Victory. The total number of undead soldiers under Chu Jianghe officially surpassed 10,000. Dense swathes of undead nearly filled the entire divine realm. A surging aura of death and killing intent threatened to spill out through the light screens. At last, the 10th match commenced. Codename Tyrant. Record 9 wins, 0 losses. Matched opponent. Codename Butcher. Record 12 wins, 1 loss. It's Butcher, the established overlord of Tier 1 zone. He's finally drawn Butcher. This has to be where his streak ends. Upon seeing the ID, the gamblers who had lost heavily clung to this final glimmer of hope. Butcher's divine kin were third-tier stitched abominations, renowned for defense and brute strength, the perfect counter to swarm tactics. But when the battle began, witnesses saw 1,000 zombie elf archers knock their arrows, thousands of corrosive shafts raining down onto the bulky stitched abominations. 500 zombie centaur heavy cavalry formed a battle line and charged, piercing the slow-moving giants repeatedly with lances. 800 zombie dwarf musketeers concentrated fire, shattering the abomination's joints. Finally, nearly 10,000 zombie infantry surged forward, tearing them apart and swallowing them whole. Silence fell over the crowd. Butcher's formidable stitched abominations could not mount a meaningful counterattack against Chu Jianghe's diversified, well-coordinated, undead coalition. Ding. Codename, Tyrant, victory in round 10. Congratulations on achieving a 10-win streak. You have obtained the title, Lord of the Meat Grinder. Chu Jianghe chose not to queue again. He possessed sufficient equipment. He possessed sufficient wealth. He glanced at his godly panel. Divine coin balance, 12,870,000. 12,870,000. A fortune enough to drive any apprentice deity wild. Within his divine realm, more than 10,000 varied zombies were fully equipped. Armor and weapons of all tiers stripped from Butcher, and his 9 defeated foes armed the undead army from head to toe. In particular, the 500 zombie centaurs wore 3rd-tier enchanted plate armor collected by Butcher, their auras soaring. His goals accomplished. Chu Jianghe's consciousness dissolved into light and withdrew from the arena. He left behind a legendary 10-win streak, and a steward number 3 slumping in his chair, too shaken to draft his report. Dormitory, Federal First High School. Chu Jianghe opened his eyes. Barely over an hour had passed in the outside world. He opened the Divine Trade Network. Merchants who had canceled his orders earlier bombarded him with private messages, asking whether he still sought equipment and materials. The Lin clan's blockade? Against overwhelming wealth and military might, it amounted to nothing. Chu Jianghe ignored all messages and began tallying his spoils, planning how to deploy his over 10,000 elite undead to secure an outstanding ranking in the upcoming midterm assessment. Just then, knock, knock, knock. Someone rapped on the dormitory door. Chu Jianghe rose and opened it. He felt a flicker of surprise at the figure standing outside. Clad in a white minter uniform, tall and strikingly beautiful with cold, crisp features, it was his mentor, Su Qingxue. Her gorgeous eyes fixed steadily on Chu Jianghe, filled with scrutiny, astonishment, and a complicated emotion she herself failed to fully recognize. Student Chu Jianghe. Her crimson lips parted, her voice cool. A word. The air outside the dormitory door seemed to turn crisp with her presence. Su Qingxue, once the top graduate of Federal First High, now an assistant mentor here. She consistently claimed first place on the combat rankings and was the object of admiration for countless male students. Now she stood at the doorway of Chu Jianghe's modest single dormitory. Her eyes, like glacial Arctic lakes, regarded him without a ripple. Her gaze carried the weight of appraisal, as precise instruments scanning and analyzing him, tangled with faint disbelief she could not suppress. Student Chu Jianghe, she spoke. Her voice matched her bearing, cool, concise, devoid of superfluous emotion. What is it? Chu Jianghe replied, even more tersely. He made no move to step aside and invite her inside, nor did her status and appearance stir any emotion within him. Down the corridor, several dorm doors creaked ajar. Heads peeked out, their expressions a mixture of shock, envy, and disbelief. Su Qingxue had come to seek Chu Jianghe voluntarily? That commoner youth who awakened the much-maligned zombie kin? Su Qingxue paid no heed to the piercing stares lining the hallway, nor did she grow irritated at Chu Jianghe's unwelcoming demeanor. She simply watched the young man before her. Originally, she had only viewed Chu Jianghe as an unfortunate soul burdened with the weakest possible divine realm. Yet his eerie tactics and icy killing intent during the border skirmish drew the attention of the forces backing her. Orders had been relayed. Make contact, test him, evaluate his potential. The rules for the midterm assessment have been released. Su Qingxue lifted a slender finger and tapped the void. A pale red, glowing virtual light screen hovered before Chu Jianghe. The Blood Moon Half-Plane Survival Challenge. Su Qingxue's voice sounded like striking ice, crisp yet frigid. It lasts 7 days. The half-plane teams with mutated aberrations and red moon monsters. Chu Jianghe skimmed the information on the screen, his expression unchanged. Mentor, if you only came to deliver notice, the AI could have handled this. Su Qingxue met his gaze directly and lowered her voice. Lin Tianjiao may have lost fragments of his divine essence, but the Lin clan behind him will never swallow this humiliation. Last night, a bounty targeting you appeared on the black market. No fewer than 3 classes of top third-year students have accepted the contract. Furthermore, the Lin clan smuggled a batch of second-tier enchanted equipment and distributed it to their kin. Inside the Blood Moon Half-Plane, their sole mission is to hunt you down and destroy your divine realm core. Behind the cracked doorways in the corridor, eavesdropping students gasped. 3 classes of elite students. That amounted to over 100 apprentice deities commanding tens of thousands of elite kin. And they possessed second-tier enchanted gear. Within the enclosed half-plane, where divine realm connections could not be severed, this formed an inescapable trap. Even with thousands of zombies, Chu Jianghe faced certain death. So, Chu Jianghe's tone remained calm. No fear, no panic, not the slightest shift in emotion. As if the deadly net Su Qingxue described were merely a light breeze brushing his sleeves. Su Qingxue frowned faintly. She could not comprehend where his composure stemmed from. Ignorance or reckless arrogance. Join me. Su Qingxue extended an offer that would send the entire third grade into an uproar. My divine kin are Tundra Ice Wolves, second-tier peak units on the verge of advancing to third tier. She paused and laid out her bargaining chip. If you team up with me, the Lin clan's forces will not dare move against you within the half-plane. My protection will guarantee you survive until the assessment concludes. Silence gripped the corridor for a heartbeat. It was followed by muffled, heavy breathing. Tundra Ice Wolves, the undisputed top combat power of the third grade. Su Qingxue was not merely the school's admired beauty. She was the absolute combat ceiling of the senior year. To team up with her meant absolute safety, alongside an extremely high assessment score. The boys hiding behind doors burned with jealousy. Why him? Simply because this impoverished youth had outwitted Lin Tianjiao once? Su Qingxue waited quietly for Chu Jianghe's reply. In her opinion, this was an offer no one could refuse. No apprentice deity trapped in a desperate situation would turn down such protection, especially when extended personally by her. And yet, Chu Jianghe suddenly smiled. It was a restrained smile, yet his eyes held the cold calculation of a merchant weighing profit and loss. Team up. Chu Jianghe tilted his head slightly and asked, Yes, you will not be tasked with heavy fighting. Your zombies feel no pain, making them ideal for perimeter watch and frontline cannon fodder. My ice wolves will handle core combat. We split spoils 20-80, 20% for you, 80 for me. Su Qingxue presented what she deemed a fair, even generous distribution arrangement. No, Chu Jianghe uttered a single word. Su Qingxue froze. For the first time, clear astonishment crossed her exquisite features. Is the split insufficient? 30-70 is my absolute bottom line. Chu Jianghe shook his head and raised one finger, gently pushing the floating virtual light screen aside. Mentor Su, you appear to have misunderstood something. Chu Jianghe stared straight into her beautiful eyes and spoke slowly. I refuse not because of unfair shares. It is because you will slow down my efficiency. A deathly silence engulfed the corridor. The eavesdropping students stared blankly, wondering if they had misheard. What did he just say? He claimed Su Qingxue, the top student of the grade, would hold him back? Su Qingxue's breath hitched sharply. All her life, she had received praise, deference, awe. Yet, holding others back was a phrase never before directed at her. Chu Jianghe. A trace of anger finally tinged Su Qingxue's voice. Confidence is admirable, but blind arrogance will get you killed inside the half-plane. You cannot fathom the strength of a coalition formed from 3 classes. I understand perfectly. Chu Jianghe cut her off, his gaze deep enough to chill the soul. Mentor Su, your Tundra Ice Wolves are undeniably powerful. But tell me, do they require sustenance? Su Qingxue answered instinctively. Naturally, high-tier units demand vast amounts of flesh to replenish stamina. Do they need rest? They must rest for 6 hours after 12 consecutive hours of battle. Do they experience fear or plummeting morale when their packmates fall? Su Qingxue fell silent. This was an inherent flaw of all living kin. Chu Jianghe's smile widened, cruel yet utterly logical. You see, your kin need food, rest, and can feel terror and exhaustion. They are far too fragile. Chu Jianghe's mind drifted to the over 10,000 newly returned undead soldiers in his divine realm, tireless, eyes blazing crimson, perfect workers who never complained. My staff require no food, no sleep, and feel no pain. They never cease working. They can fight nonstop for 24 hours, leaving nothing alive in their wake. Chu Jianghe stepped forward half a pace, his imposing aura rolling towards Su Qingxue. Teaming up with you means pausing to let your wolves eat and rest, means accounting for their morale. It wastes massive amounts of my time. What matters more? Chu Jianghe's tone turned icy. There are abundant targets ahead, and I have no wish to share experience with anyone. Su Qingxue's pupils shrank in shock. Targets? He viewed the hundreds of elite students hired by the Lin clan, the tens of thousands of enemy kin, merely as prey? Madman. He was utterly insane. Su Qingxue studied Chu Jianghe's refined face, marked by unshakable rationality, overcome by a surreal sense of absurdity. Military command had ordered her to test this young man's potential. She thought she had glimpsed his trump card. Now she realized she had only seen the tip of an iceberg. If you insist on walking toward your doom, I will not stop you. Su Qingxue suppressed all emotion, reverting to her cold mentor demeanor. She turned and tossed out a frigid warning over her shoulder. I hope your bones prove as unyielding as your words inside the half-plane. The sound of heels clicking against the corridor floor faded away. Chu Jianghe slammed the dormitory door shut. Only then did the hidden students dare draw deep breaths, before erupting into muffled jeers. Arrogant. Unbelievably arrogant. He even turned down a chance to team up with Goddess Su. Who does he think he is, a primordial god? Empty bravado. Once they enter the Blood Moon half-plane, and the Zhang crew corners him, I want to see how he cries. He's doomed. Not even Su Qingxue can save him. Mark my words. Inside the room, Chu Jianghe paid no mind to outside chatter. He closed his eyes once more, his consciousness sinking into his divine realm. Across the vast gray landscape, over 10,000 fully armed zombies stood motionless. No breathing, no chatter, only suffocating stillness. 3 classes of elite students. Chu Jianghe overlooked his army and calculated silently. More than 100 divine realms, tens of thousands of varied kin, bolstered by second-tier enchanted equipment. If I can assimilate and consume every last one. A greedy fervor flashed across Chu Jianghe's eyes. What a bountiful feast that would be. The Lin clan believed they had woven an inescapable net to crush this insignificant fly. Little did they know, to a capitalist, everything delivered to one's doorstep amounts to free labor and resource packages. Time for the feast, everyone. Chu Jianghe whispered softly. Within the divine realm, tens of thousands of zombies lifted their heads in unison. Their scarlet eyes burned like countless raging flames amid the gloom. 3 days later, 1st Federal Supreme Academy, Number 1 Interstellar Drill Ground. Boom, boom, boom. Amid deafening thunder, a massive rift tore open across the sky. 100-meter-tall astral portal slowly materialized at the center of the drill ground. Instead of the usual pale blue spatial passage, churning nauseating dark red blood mist swirled within the gateway. A phantom of a broken blood moon loomed faintly through the haze. A stifling, bloodthirsty, raging aura swept over the entire field like tangible substance. Thousands of senior probationary deities stood beneath the portal. Many wore ashen faces. Their familiars within their divine domains trembled already, suppressed by the planar aura. The headmaster stood atop the high platform, his voice amplified by divine power to reach every corner. The midterm examination officially begins. Target, the Blood Moon demiplane. Examination rules: survive, hunt, seize plunder. All gains obtained within the demiplane belong to the individual. Anyone whose divine domain shatters will be eliminated instantly. Remember, beneath the Blood Moon, there are no classmates, only competitors and prey. His words sparked an uproar among the crowd. Chu Jianghe stood alone in a corner, dressed in plain black casual wear, his expression calm and indifferent. At that moment, several malicious gazes locked onto him from not far away. Led by Zhang Quang, Lin Tianjiao's most loyal subordinate, more than 100 students gathered as one. Most wore costly divine power armor, clearly rewarded by the Lin family. Zhang Quang turned toward Chu Jianghe, killing intent laid bare in his eyes. He raised a hand and drew a finger sharply across his throat in a slitting gesture. Silently, he mouthed a message, ready to die? A cruel, mocking snarl erupted from the 100-odd students. In their eyes, Chu Jianghe was already a dead man, merely a walking stockpile of resources and the bounty promised by the Lin family. Chu Jianghe watched the scene unfold before him. A faint, subtle tug curved the corner of his mouth. He offered no response to the provocation, nor did fear flicker across his features. He simply regarded them as plump livestock pinned up in a corral, hewing merrily toward the slaughter conveyor. Buzz. The blood radiance of the portal surged violently. Enter. The headmaster barked the order. Chu Jianghe stepped forward without hesitation and strode into the roiling crimson mist. The carnage had begun. Buzz. The vertigo of spatial distortion faded in an instant. Chu Jianghe's consciousness snapped back from brief disorientation, soft earth meeting his feet. Crimson. That was the first impression the Blood Moon demiplane imposed on every newcomer. A shattered scarlet lunar orb hung in the sky, spilling light thick as congealed blood that dyed the ash-black soil an ominous dark red. The air reeked of rust and rot. Every inhalation felt like drawing shards of blade into the lungs. Whine, roar, unease. The moment they descended, restless growls echoed across every stretch of the demiplane from countless familiars. Beneath the Blood Moon's glow, all non-undead, non-demonic familiars suffered a minimum 10 suppression to all attributes. Worse still, a primal frenzy and dread gnawed at their souls, eroding their sanity. Many students' familiars had already begun snapping at one another or digging frantically at the ground, desperate to escape the omnipresent scarlet moonlight. Hurry! Erect divine power shelters to calm the familiars. Damn it! Food consumption has risen by 30%. My jungle sprites are losing their minds. They detest this cursed land. The communication channel flooded with panicked cries. For nearly all probationary deities, the examination turned into hell the second they set foot here. Yet Chu Jianghe's divine domain panel displayed a stark contrast. Ding! Your familiar zombie has been affected by the blood moon environment. Hidden effect of talent rage of the departed activated. All your zombie units gain a temporary 20 boost to all attributes. Tireless, immune to panic. A cold smile tugged at Chu Jianghe's lips. What served as a crippling debuff for everyone else was a global buff for him. Fairness? There had never been such a concept in the realm of deities. His landing point rested on a relatively flat wasteland. Less than 5 minutes after his arrival, countless black specks emerged along the distant horizon. The specks rapidly expanded, converging into a surging tide. Orc roars, goblin shrieks, hyena howls. A chaotic cacophony rolled forth, kicking up billowing dust as forces closed in from all directions. It was Zhang Kuang and his allies. Over 100 students commanding nearly 20,000 familiars had formed a massive encirclement. They moved swiftly, their goal unambiguous. Evidently, using intelligence provided by the Lin family, they had locked onto Chu Jianghe's general landing coordinates before entering the demiplane. Ha! Found him. That kid's right in the center. At the front of the coalition, Zhang Kuang, mounted on a third-order patterned rhinoceros, laughed loudly. Clad in second-order enchanted armor sponsored by the Lin family and gripping a knight's lance, he exuded arrogance. Already picturing Chu Jianghe's shattered divine domain and futile pleas for mercy. Close the encirclement. Don't let him slip away. Archers, take aim. Train every arrow on him. Remember, don't kill him straight away. Young Master Lin wants him tormented, pushed to the depths of despair. More than 100 students roared in agreement, ordering their familiars to shrink the circle. To them, Chu Jianghe was trapped like a rat in a jar. Soon, the 20,000-strong army sealed off every passage within a kilometer of Chu Jianghe's position. Zhang Kuang guided his rhinoceros forward from the ranks, towering over the lone figure standing amid the wasteland. Chu Jianghe. Zhang Kuang amplified his voice with divine power, tone dripping with the malice of a cat toying with a mouse. You thought you could rise to greater heights after ambushing Lin Tianjiao? Foolish. I'll give you one chance. He pointed his lance toward Chu Jianghe, cruelty plain on his face. Kneel, dissolve your divine domain, and hand over all your resources. Then crawl over to me and bow low. I might grant you a whole corpse. Peals of laughter erupted from the students behind him. You hear that, country bumpkin? Zhang Kuang told you to kneel. Quit struggling. You're surrounded by 20,000 troops. What can you fight us with? Obey, and you'll avoid worse suffering. Taunts and jeers echoed endlessly. They waited, eager to witness fear, despair, and regret creep across Chu Jianghe's face. But Chu Jianghe merely stood there. No fear, no anger, not even the flicker of an emotion. He lifted his head, his profound gaze sweeping over the densely packed familiar army surrounding him. His stare was not that of a man facing deadly foes. It resembled a herdsman inspecting his pasture, evaluating a herd of plump livestock awaiting slaughter. What kind of look is that? Damn it, he still dares to act arrogant when death looms. Several students felt a chill creep over them beneath Chu Jianghe's gaze. Zhang Kuang's expression darkened. Chu Jianghe's unruffled calm stung him with the sting of being ignored. Reckless fool. If you refuse the kind offer, then die. Everyone, prepare. Zhang Kuang raised his lance high, ready to issue the command for a full assault. At that moment, Chu Jianghe slowly lifted his right hand. No surging divine power, no incantations or prayers. Beneath the watchful eyes of 20,000 troops and over 100 probationary deities, he stood in the center of the wasteland, facing the scarlet moon, and snapped his fingers softly. Snap! The sound rang clear. The next instant, catastrophe erupted. Crack! Rumble! Centered on Chu Jianghe, the ash-black earth stretching a kilometer outward buckled and peeled upward like a flung blanket. Deep, bottomless fissures ripped open across the ground. Roar! A roar seemingly rising from the depths of the nine hells boomed out as a decaying, massive claw caked with fresh mud burst from a crack. Then a second claw, a third, 100th. Before every onlooker's horrified eyes, countless varied zombies clambered upward from beneath the earth. First emerged 800 zombie dwarf musketeers. They wore tattered heavy armor, scarlet soulfire burning within empty eye sockets, gun barrels uniformly aimed at the outer coalition. These were the zombie dwarf musketeers. Next, 1,000 lithe, decayed zombie elves materialized silently from another set of fissures. They drew longbows, thousands of arrows shimmering with sickly green corrosion light locking onto mages and fragile archers within the coalition. These were the zombie elf archers. Boom, boom, boom. The ground trembled violently. 500 skeletal steed-mounted zombies clad in third-order enchanted heavy armor charged forth from underground. Once proud centaurs, reborn as undead, their momentum undimmed. Lances glinted with chilling menace. These were the zombie centaur heavy cavalry. Behind them strode towering zombie orcs wielding giant axes. Swift, predatory zombie werewolves bared their claws. And an endless horde of over 8,000 first-order frenzied zombies and zombie goblins gripped iron blades. 10,000. A full 10,000 well-equipped, tactically diverse, neatly formed zombie army emerged from the earth, shielding Chujianghe at its core. The aura of death emanating from 10,000 undead surged upward like a tangible tide, tearing a rift in the thick scarlet cloud cover overhead. A deathly silence descended over the battlefield. Zhang Kuang, who had been laughing moments earlier, froze rigidly, his jaw hanging open wide enough to fit an egg. His mount, the third-order patterned rhinoceros, let out a terrified whinny, pawing anxiously at the dirt and stepping backward. The 100-plus students around him watched on, their sneers and brutality melting away into stunned confusion, then unbridled terror. What are these? Centaurs? Elves? Dwarves? Weren't his familiars only zombies? 10,000, at least 10,000. And every single one is an advanced unit. This cannot be real. Where did he acquire such an army? Panic spread through the coalition like a plague. They had imagined Chujianghe might command a few thousand zombies and brace themselves for a bitter fight. Yet none could have anticipated facing a fully coordinated legion comparable to a formal military force. This was no longer a siege. It was a head-on clash between two armies. Sweat streaked down Zhang Kuang's forehead as he stared fixedly at the undead host radiating endless rot. Still, as Lin Tianjiao's most trusted subordinate, he forced back his dread and shouted hoarsely, concealing his alarm. Don't panic. He only has 10,000. We have 20,000. We hold twice the numbers. Charge. Overwhelm him with sheer numbers. Crush him. He rallied himself and his subordinates. True, the enemy's army looked imposing, but they outnumbered them 2-1. Victory remained within reach if they charged and drowned the undead horde. Charge! Zhang Kuang roared, spurring his rhinoceros forward to lead the assault. Behind him, the 20,000 makeshift army, roused to reluctant courage, let out thunderous battle cries and surged toward the 10,000 silent undead like a bursting flood. Staring at the incoming tide of resource packages, a satisfied smile finally appeared on Chujianghe's face. He delivered his first and only divine edict to his legion since entering the Blood Moon demiplane. Feast. The battle erupted. 20,000 coalition troops rushed forward. Zhang Kuang held his knight's lance aloft, shouting at the top of his lungs, striving to drown out the primal fear the Blood Moon stirred within his familiars. More than 100 probationary deities issued their divine commands simultaneously. Magical energies churned above the wasteland. Hundreds of fireballs and ice shards, alongside thousands of arrows, sliced through the crimson sky to crash into the zombie formation. Explosions rippled without cease. Flame and frost detonated amid the undead ranks. Limbs and black putrid blood flew through the air. Over 100 low-tier frenzied zombies at the front line collapsed instantly. Well done. Zhang Kuang barked with delight. Maintain range suppression. Orc vanguard. Push forward and flatten them. No matter how he postures, zombies are fragile trash. Mockery returned to the faces of the 100-plus students. Against overwhelming numbers and firepower, the 10,000 zombies seemed far less fearsome. Chujianghe stood at the formation's heart. He glanced at the fallen frenzied zombies, no emotion stirring in his eyes. He raised his right hand, then brought it down sharply. 800 zombie dwarf musketeers leveled their barrels in unison. Scarlet soulfire flickered violently within their hollow eye sockets. Bang, bang, bang. Uniform gunfire drowned out the roar of battle. 800 lead pellets tore through the air, propelled by gunpowder. Frontline orc warriors did not even have time to raise their shields before fist-sized holes were blasted through their chests. Their screams had yet to fade when 1,000 zombie elf archers released their bowstrings. A dense web of corrosive green arrows arced through the air, striking precisely at mages and archers in the coalition's rear lines. Toxins seeped into flesh, sending hordes of fragile familiars writhing on the ground as their bodies rotted away. Zhang Kuang's expression shifted drastically. He had not anticipated such swift, precise retaliation. Do not halt. Close into melee combat. They cannot stand up to close-quarters fighting. Zhang Kuang urged his rhinoceros onward, pushing his army to accelerate. The two surging forces collided. The meat grinder had begun. Boosted by rage of the departed, the 500 zombie centaur heavy cavalry charged forward at terrifying speed. They felt no pain, ignoring blades slashing their bodies as their heavy armor and bone frames crashed into the coalition battle lines. Lances pierced enemy chests, hooves crushed skulls. A second-order werewolf warrior seized an opening, slashing open a zombie centaur's abdomen. Black decaying innards spilled onto the ground. The centaur felt no cry of agony. It cast aside its lance, clamped both hands around the werewolf's neck, and sank its rotting fangs into its carotid artery. The werewolf struggled briefly before falling still. The surrounding coalition soldiers breathed a sigh of relief. The zombie centaur, split in two, collapsed to the ground. See, once they fall, they are gone. One student shouted over the communication channel. Yet his words died in his throat the next instant. The corpse of the second-order werewolf twitched on the ground. A sickening crunch of shifting bones echoed as the werewolf slowly rose to its feet. Its once emerald eyes now blazed blood red. It turned toward a nearby ally who had been preparing to strike another zombie. Squelch! The werewolf's claw pierced the man's heart. You've lost your senses. We're allies. A nearby orc roared in horror. The transformed werewolf ignored him, yanking free its claw and lunging for the next victim. This eerie scene repeated endlessly. Across the kilometers-long wasteland battlefield, countless identical horrors unfolded. If a zombie landed a killing blow, or even merely broke the skin, the law of absolute assimilation took hold, unalterable. Fallen coalition familiars rose 2 or 3 seconds after collapsing, their eyes flaring scarlet. They seized nearby weapons and turned their blades against the comrades who had fought beside them moments before. A towering bear warrior crushed a zombie goblin with his heavy hammer, only to feel a sharp pain in his leg. He glanced down to see his former orc lieutenant sinking its teeth into his calf. Get off! The bear warrior kicked the lieutenant away, only to see half the orc's face rotting as it snarled like a wild beast. Fear. A soul-deep shudder gripped every coalition familiar. No, spare me. They're standing back up. Monsters. All of them are monsters. Lord Deity, save us. The coalition battle lines fractured into widespread chaos. Their initial 2-to-1 numerical advantage rapidly eroded, amid mass desertion and betrayal, soon tipping in the opposite direction. Zhang Kuang sat frozen atop his patterned rhinoceros, ice flooding his veins. He watched his elite bodyguard squad, after slaying several zombies, surrounded by a group of zombie elf archers. After a flurry of bites, every member of his bodyguard rose anew, weapons raised toward him. Impossible, this cannot be. Zhang Kuang clutched his hair wildly, bloodshot eyes bulging. Textbooks clearly stated that zombies could not multiply. Once a divine domain's power dried up, the undead would cease to function. Why? Why did every enemy they slayed become reinforcements for him? Zhang Kuang snapped his head upward, locking eyes with the black-cloaked youth standing at the battlefield center. Xu Jianghe remained with hands clasped behind his back, watching the carnage unfold with icy detachment. Those gazes were plainly sizing them up, as if they were free building materials rolling down an assembly line. Run. Only this thought remained in Zhang Kuang's mind. Fall back. Everyone fall back. He roared frantically over the comms channel, but it was already too late. Xu Jianghe issued his second divine edict: annihilate. Assimilate. Spare none. The army of zombies abruptly quickened their pace. Driven to the extreme by zeal of the departed, every zombie began sprinting tirelessly. Fleeing coalition dependents were caught one after another, tackled, and torn apart. The glow of the blood moon grew ever more dismal. The soil across the wasteland was stained a deep, dark red by spilled blood. Zhang Kuang's rune-armored giant rhinoceros charged forward, only to be blocked by hundreds of mutated orcs. A dull crash of colliding flesh echoed out. The rhinoceros' massive frame was flipped upside down by sheer force. Zhang Kuang screamed as he crashed to the ground. He lifted his head and saw more than a dozen bloodshot-eyed zombie goblins raising wooden clubs, swinging straight for him. Before his consciousness faded to black, he heard the sound of his domain's divine core shattering. Half an hour. Merely half an hour. The sounds of slaughter died away. Not a single living dependent of the coalition remained on the wasteland. Chu Jianghe opened his divine realm panel and glanced at his troop tally. 31,400 units. Instead of suffering losses, his forces had surged by 20,000. The ranks now held numerous second-tier and even a handful of third-tier mutated units. This was the power of the fourth cataclysm. Outside the demiplane, First Federal High School, Interstellar Sports Ground 1. Over 3,000 teachers and students stood before the enormous holographic screen, engulfed in dead silence. You could hear a pin drop. A light breeze swept across the field, yet everyone felt as though they had fallen into an icy abyss. The live feed on the screen captured every second of what had just unfolded with crystal clarity. From the coalition's charge to the outbreak of mass assimilation, culminating in their crushing, total annihilation. There was no evenly matched stalemate. No intricate tactical back and forth. Only a one-sided, merciless feast of assimilation. More than 100 top senior students who had joined the encirclement now lay along the edges of the teleportation array. Their virtual connection pods popped open all at once. Every one of them was deathly pale, frothing at the mouth. The backlash from their shattered divine realms had plunged them into a deep coma. At the front of the crowd, Su Qingxue stared rigidly at the youth standing atop the heaps of corpses on screen. Her breathing turned ragged. The words Chu Jianghe had spoken when turning her down in the dorm hallway 3 days prior echoed again in her ears. You would slow down my efficiency. There are countless prey. I have no desire to split experience with anyone. Su Qingxue finally grasped the full weight of those words. If Chu Jianghe had teamed up with her back then, her polarized wolves would now likely be just another part of that 30,000-strong army. A monster. Su Qingxue clenched her fists until her knuckles turned pale. A short distance away, Lin Tianjiao was supported by 2 lackeys, his gaze glued to the screen. His lips trembled nonstop. 3 days ago, he had told himself he had merely underestimated his foe through carelessness. He had tapped his family's resources, bribed over 100 people, and outfitted them all with second-tier enchanted gear, convinced he had laid an inescapable death trap. Now, before the entire school, Chu Jianghe had ripped apart every last one of his trump cards and turned them all into his own strength. No, this can't be. How can zombies be this powerful? Lin Tianjiao's legs buckled, and he slumped fully to the ground. A damp patch spread across the front of his trousers. On the viewing platform, the principal and several senior instructors wore grave expressions. The law of absolute assimilation. The principal drew a deep breath. Even the original divine realm of the supreme overgod who founded the undead divine system possessed nothing greater. Seal all information immediately. Cut all signal transmissions outside the campus. Blood Moon Demiplane. Across the wasteland, Chu Jianghe casually dismissed dozens of pop-up loot notifications. Over 100 apprentice gods' spatial rings and enchanted equipment amounted to an enormous fortune. Yet he could not even be bothered to glance down at them. The zombies sorted and stacked all the supplies of their own accord. The vocabulary of a capitalist contained no word for satisfaction. This massacre was merely an appetizer to him. The dependents of those 100 weaklings possessed far too little potential and tier power. Chu Jianghe turned and fixed his gaze upon a blood-red mountain range deep within the demiplane. On his divine realm scanner panel, a blinding red dot flickered there. Second-tier peak, Lord-class wild monster. Red moon aberration. I wonder what new mutated forms the flesh of a Lord-tier creature could spawn among my zombies. Chu Jianghe licked his lips and raised a hand, pointing toward the mountains. The 30,000-strong zombie army turned as one and marched toward the range. There were no cheers of victory, no pause to rest. Rumble. 31,400 zombies formed an ash-black tide of death, stepping forward in perfect unison as they advanced toward the mountains. This was not a military march. This was land clearing. A pack of more than 100 second-tier shadow wolves, disturbed by the overwhelming aura of death, charged out from a canyon. They were the overlords of this stretch of land, swift, agile masters of shadow ambushes. Yet before the 30,000-strong army, they never even drew close to Chu Jianghe. The frontline zombie Orc Legion, a moving wall of flesh and steel, trampled straight over them. Giant axes swung, bones splintered. The wails of the shadow wolves were quickly replaced by the roars of newly assimilated undead. Less than 3 minutes passed. The battle ended. A number flickered on Chu Jianghe's divine realm panel. 31,520 units. The Shadow Wolf pack had become zombie shadow wolves, silently merging into the flanks of the war machine. This was only the beginning. The army pressed onward. Report to the divine ruler. 300 meters ahead, exposed blood copper or veins detected. The leader of the zombie dwarf musketeers sent a stiff message across the Divine Realm panel. Within a normal God's dependent system, scouting missions required dedicated scouts. Once resources were found, miners equipped with tools would need to be dispatched. The round trip would take at least half a day. Chu Jiang has sent back a single word. Mine. The instant the order was issued. Nearly 5,000 regular zombies and zombie goblins split off from the formation. They surged toward the rock, faces glinting with dark red metal. No tools in hand, they dug ferociously, using nails, teeth, every part of their bodies they could wield. Crack, crack. Nails snapped, flesh tore. Chunks of or were pried free from the bedrock in the most primitive, brutal fashion imaginable. Their bodies sustained constant damage, yet the zeal of the departed talent dulled all sensation of pain. Their mining efficiency even outstripped mechanical machinery. In barely 10 minutes, a vein of blood copper stretching nearly 100 meters long was completely stripped bare. All that remained was a bottomless massive pit, littered with broken fingernails and splintered bone. After consuming the corpses of nearby wild beasts, those 5,000 zombies' wounds healed instantly. They marched back into formation, as vigorous as ever, as if nothing had happened. Several kilometers ahead of the undead army, atop a hill, Su Qingxue stood quietly. She had not fled, nor ventured deeper into the zone. From the moment Chu Jianghe's zombie legion had encircled Zhang Kuang's coalition, her assessment mission had lost all meaning. Now she only wanted to discover just where the limits lay of this youth she had once dismissed as recklessly ignorant. Through a divine artifact bestowed by her clan, the far-seeing mirror, she watched every movement of Chu Jianghe's army. She witnessed the Shadow Wolf Pack's instantaneous assimilation. She saw the blood copper veins stripped bare through brute force. Then she witnessed something even harder for her to comprehend. The zombie army crossed a marsh thick with coagulating grass. Coagulating grass, a second-tier spiritual herb, a primary ingredient for crafting healing divine potions. Each stalk held considerable value. Standard harvesting methods required careful uprooting to preserve its medicinal potency. Chu Jianghe's legion did nothing of the sort. Thousands of zombies charged into the marsh. They did not pick the plants. They ripped entire clods of marsh earth, roots and all, straight out of the ground. They hauled them away. Where they passed, no neatly harvested ground remained. Only barren depressions scraped bare down to the bedrock. Truly, not a blade of grass left standing. Su Qingxue's fingers trembled around the far-seeing mirror. Her tall frame swayed unsteadily where she stood. What is he aiming for? The once peerless elite of First Federal High School doubted her own judgment for the first time. Could these even be divine dependents? Divine dependence required faith, rest, emotional comfort, and meticulous nurturing and development. Chu Jianghe's army overturned every idea she held. They needed no faith. They channeled divine power to Chu Jianghe through slaughter and terror. No rest was required. They could operate 24 hours nonstop. They possessed no emotion, acting as supremely efficient, cold execution machines. After winning a brutal battle, other gods' dependents needed time to recover, tally casualties, treat the wounded, and gather provisions. For Chu Jianghe, war meant restocking his forces. Every casualty was replaced by new recruits. While on campaign, they mined, ore, and collected resources along the way. Warfare, logistics, production. Every sector all other gods carefully strove to balance was crudely fused into one seamless whole for him. An infinite snowballing cycle of plunder at its core. This is no god. Su Qingxue's lips paled, and she whispered to herself. This is a roaming natural disaster. She finally understood what Chu Jianghe had meant 3 days prior when he told her. You would slow my harvest efficiency. What would happen if her beloved polar ice wolves joined this army? Chu Jianghe, the capitalist, would likely view even the time spent eating and drinking as an unforgivable waste of efficiency. Su Qingxue drew a deep breath, forcing back the storm of shock roiling inside her. She lifted her gaze toward the blood-red mountain range now shrouded in the shadow of death. The Red Moon aberration, a second-tier peak Lord-tier monster. Chu Jianghe, is that your target? Very well. Let me see if this so-called cataclysm of yours can stand firm against a true planar lord. Her words trailed off unfinished. Abrupt chaos erupted. The entire Blood Moon demiplane shuddered violently without warning. It was as though a slumbering leviathan had been kicked hard, stirring restlessly. The broken Blood Moon hanging in the sky dimmed at once. Wisp upon wisp of ominous black energy rose from all directions. It surged frantically toward the blood-red mountains. Su Qingshua's expression turned grim. She quickly raised the far-seeing mirror, aiming it toward the range. The tallest peak at the mountain range's center shook violently, fissures snaking across its surface. Boulders crashed downward, billowing clouds of dust and smoke. What is happening? Has the red moon aberration lost control? No. This aura far surpasses second-tier power. She hastily pulled up her divine realm scanner panel. The second-tier peak red dot marking the red moon aberration had vanished entirely. In its place loomed a far larger, deeper red dot, radiating suffocating, terrifying pressure. Lines of blood-red text slowly materialized beside the dot. Warning. Third-tier Lord class entity detected. Shadow Earth WRM awakened from slumber at that same moment. Chu Jianghe, whose army had been sweeping all resistance before them, came to a halt. The identical stark warning popped up on his divine realm panel. He stared toward the stirring mountains in the distance. Instead of alarm, a look of intense interest crossed his face. Harvesting everything in sight really lured out the big game. He licked his lips and muttered quietly. A third-tier lord. Perfect timing. My zombie army is long overdue for a collective evolution. Roar. A soul-rending dragon roar erupted from deep within the mountains, echoing across the entire demiplane. The tallest mountain peak exploded into rubble. A massive, ferocious dragon head covered in shadow scales, larger than a house, emerged from rock and dust. A pair of molten vertical pupils locked firmly onto Chu Jianghe's position. The blood-red mountain range collapsed. Huge slabs of dark red rock tumbled down the slopes, kicking up dense clouds of dust. The ground shook violently, and a fissure several meters deep snaked from the mountain's foot all the way to where Chu Jianghe stood. Raging pressure burst forth from beneath the earth. A colossal creature over 50 meters long broke through the surface. Its body was clad in thick black scales, each edge dripping corrosive shadow energy. Sturdy limbs crushed stone beneath their weight, and 2 rows of jagged spines ran down its back. It was the third-tier Lord class monster, the Shadow Earth WRM. It had been slumbering until the racket of 30,000 zombies brutally mining blood copper or jolted it awake. Its furious irritation erupted into a deafening roar. Sound waves condensed into tangible shock waves, sending hundreds of frontline zombies flying. Outside the demiplane, First Federal High School, Interstellar Sports Ground 1. The universal silence shattered completely. A third-tier lord. One senior instructor shot to his feet, knocking over his chair. There is a distortion in the Blood Moon demiplane's energy nodes. How can a third-tier creature appear in the outer zone? Su Qingshua's face paled instantly. Her hands slammed down onto the control console. The maximum threat an apprentice god could handle was ordinary second-tier creatures. A third-tier lord was a foe fit only for formal lesser gods. An uncrossable chasm separated these tiers of life power. Activate emergency forced teleportation. The principal made an immediate call, shouting his order. Extract Chu Jianghe at once. His divine realm cannot withstand the crushing power of third-tier laws. Operator's fingers flew across virtual keyboards. Principal. S-rank emergency rescue formation locked onto coordinates. Establishing connection now. Blood Moon demiplane. Brilliant golden light suddenly blazed in the dark red sky above Chu Jianghe. A massive hexagram formation materialized overhead, casting down soft beams meant to pull him away. A system alert echoed inside Chu Jianghe's mind. Warning. High energy response exceeding specifications detected. School authorities have initiated S-class emergency extraction. Accept traction to exit the demiplane. Countdown. 10 seconds. Chu Jianghe tilted his head upward to glance at the golden light, then turned back toward the Shadow Earth WRM, jaws stretched wide before him. Those black scales, its immense vitality, the thick shadow energy saturating its form. This was no disaster. It was a walking treasure trove of prime flesh. Chu Jianghe opened his divine realm panel and hovered his finger over the selection. Decline. Confirm refusal. This action will sever all external intervention channels. Confirm. The hexagram formation in the sky flickered twice before shattering, scattering into countless golden specks that faded away. Back on the sports ground outside, shrill alarms blared from the control station. Connection lost. The operator sweated profusely. He voluntarily cut off the rescue channel. Su Qingxue stared rigidly at the large screen. The black-cloaked youth on camera did not retreat an inch. Instead, he stepped forward. A madman, Su Qingxue gritted out. The principal's expression turned icy. What is he trying to do? Attempt to slay a WIRM far above his tier with nothing but zero-tier and first-tier zombies? Within the demiplane, Chu Jianghe closed his panel and sent a visible message across the regional comms channel for all participants in the assessment. Assessment continues. Do not steal my target. Once sent, he stowed his communicator and fixed his gaze on the Shadow Earth WIRM. The Shadow Earth WIRM sensed the provocation from this tiny being. It arched its long neck, and blinding black light ignited deep within its throat. Shadow breath. A black beam over 5 meters wide descended from above, carving a path across the wasteland. No explosive blast, only pure annihilation. Where the beam swept, the ground corroded into a gully several meters deep. More than 3,000 zombies caught in its path vanished without a sound, armor and all, reduced to ash. A single strike wiped out a tenth of his army. That was the overwhelming suppression power of a third-tier lord. Chu Jianghe's expression did not shift in the slightest. To him, those 3,000 lost zombies were merely numbers on his ledger. If he could take down this WIRM, the gains would easily offset every single loss. Full assault. Chu Jianghe issued the command. No intricate tactical flanking, no maneuvering to draw the foe out. The remaining 27,000-plus zombies executed the simplest, crudest order possible. The swarm assault tactic. Zombie Centaur heavy cavalry charged first. 500 riders bolstered by zeal of the departed formed a tide of steel, slamming hard against the Shadow Earth WRM's massive forelimbs. The sharp crack of splintering bones rang out nonstop. Enchanted lances snapped clean in two. The zombie centaurs were crushed into pulp by the recoil, riders and mounts alike. But they succeeded in halting the WRM's advance for a split second. Roar! Enraged, the Shadow Earth WIRM swiped a claw, pulverizing more than a dozen centaurs. Its tail lashed out. Hundreds of zombie berserkers and zombie orcs were sent hurtling through the air, their bodies snapping in two before crashing to the ground. The zombie army pressed forward without pause. 800 zombie dwarf musketeers advanced to 50 meters and fired as one. Lead bullets struck the black scales, spraying sparks yet failing to pierce the armor. 1,000 zombie elf archers loosed corrosive arrows. The arrows embedded in gaps between scales, yet the venom was instantly swallowed up by shadow energy flowing across the WRM's skin. Peak physical defense, extremely high magic resistance. Chu Jianghe observed the battlefield, lifted his right hand, and swept it forward. The more than 20,000 first-tier berserk zombies and zombie goblins on the outer flank moved. They tossed aside their blunted iron blades and scrambled toward the Shadow Earth WRM on hands and feet. One zombie latched onto the WRM's toe and sank its yellowed teeth deep into the scale. When its teeth cracked, it scratched with its nails instead. The WRM lifted its foot and crushed the zombie flat. Yet immediately, 10, 100, 1,000 more zombies surged upward. They piled layer upon layer over the WRM's limbs, scrambling upward across its rough scales. From a distance, the colossal Shadow Earth WIRM appeared covered in a writhing black shell. Thousands upon thousands of zombies biting and tearing relentlessly. Begone! The Shadow Earth WIRM roared in guttural draconic tongue, unleashing surging shadow energy across its body. Boom! Thousands of zombies clinging to it were thrown flying, dismembered limbs raining down. Yet within 2 seconds, the gaps were filled once more. The zombies knew no weariness, felt no fear. Even if only a severed head remained, they would bite down on the WRM scales until their final moment. Outside the demiplane, more than 3,000 teachers and students watched the large screen, dead silent. This was not battle. This was a grueling war of attrition that defied all logic. Everyone watched the overbearing third-rank lord grow increasingly sluggish beneath the tide of zombies. Look at its hind leg, a student cried out. The view zoomed in. On the Shadow Earthworm's left hind leg, a patch of scale armor the size of a washbasin had been pried and gnawed at by hundreds of zombies until a jagged gap split open. Dark red dragon blood gushed forth. Dozens of enraged zombies surged forward, shoving their rotting bodies straight into the wound. Before the dragon blood could dissolve them, they flooded its veins with the thickest strain of corpse poison they carried. This poison was a fundamental rule power native to Chu Jianghe's divine realm. A single drop of corpse poison meant nothing to a third-rank creature. But what of 10,000 drops? The Shadow Earthworm let out an agonized roar. Its colossal frame staggered violently. Its left hind leg buckled, and it crashed to one knee. The flesh around the wound blackened and began to fester. As the poison coursed through its body, the flow of shadow energy within it ground to a halt. Press on. Chu Jianghe stood far off, his voice cold and unyielding. The zombie horde erupted into frenzy. Scrambling up the WRM's bowed form, They clambered onto its back and neck. Scale after scale was torn free. Chunk after chunk of flesh was savaged away. The WYRM thrashed wildly, crushing tens of thousands of zombies beneath its bulk, yet the black mass clinging to its body only thickened. Its signature shadow breath could no longer be conjured. Toxin spread through its bloodstream, eroding its life force from within. Half an hour later, the shadow earthworm stopped rolling. Its massive body lay prone across the wasteland, its chest heaving like a broken bellows. For the first time, dread of death flickered within its cold, vertical pupils. Straight ahead, the black-robed youth advanced slowly. Stepping over piles of mangled limbs and broken bodies, Chu Jianghe reached the WRM's enormous head. He drew the iron blade at his waist and drove it hard into the gash the zombies had torn beside the WRM's eye. The blade pierced straight into its brain. The shadow earthworm's titanic frame convulsed once, then fell forever still. Third rank Lord Creature slain, Shadow Earthworm. Divine Essence extract obtained. Third rank Lord Grade Flesh Essence obtained. Chu Jianghe pulled free his blade and flicked off the black blood coating it. He surveyed his surroundings. Out of the original 30,000-strong zombie army, fewer than 8,000 remained. 22,000 had perished. A costly victory. Yet to Chu Jianghe, this was an immensely profitable trade. He walked toward the WRM's abdomen, where the purest vital energy of a third rank being resided. Chu Jianghe opened his Divine Realm panel and selected 500 surviving first-rank enraged zombies that had endured the most assimilation and slaughter. He pointed at the WRM's corpse. Feed. The soul fires burning in the eyes of the 500 enraged zombies blazed bright. They lunged at the WRM's belly, ravenously tearing apart and swallowing flesh saturated with immense power. As the flesh of the third-rank lord entered their bodies, system alerts flooded Chu Jianghe's mind. High-grade flesh energy detected. Talent. Flesh ascension activated. Your vassals are breaking through hierarchical barriers. Boom. A blinding scarlet light erupted simultaneously from every one of the 500 zombies. The light surged skyward as a gigantic crimson pillar piercing the heavens above the blood moon half-plane. Crimson clouds across the half-plane churned, swirling into a massive vortex. Savage mutated power brewed at the heart of the tempest. Chu Jianghe tilted his head upward, staring at the towering crimson radiance. His new creations were about to emerge. The crimson pillar roiled the clouds. Ferocious energies raged within the 500 enraged zombies. The vital essence and shadow rules contained in the earthworm's blood forced open their genetic locks. The sharp crack of splintering bones echoed without cease. The zombies' bodies grew taller before everyone's eyes. 2 meters, 2.5 meters, 3 meters. Dark red flesh rippled as pitch-black bone spurs pierced the skin, rapidly hardening into heavy black bone armor covering their entire forms. The patterns etched into the bone armor mirrored the shadow earthworm's scales. Their arms twisted and reshaped. Fused fingers stretched outward, transforming into a pair of meter-long pale bone blades. Faint shadow energy lingered along the cutting edges. Roar. The 500 mutated zombies roared in unison. The shockwave scattered rubble across the ground. System notifications surfaced in Chu Jianghe's mind. Vassal mutation complete. First rank enraged zombie advanced to second rank bone tyrant. Trait 1. Earthworm bone armor extreme physical defense. Immunity to low-tier magic. Trait 2. Shadow bone blades inflicts shadow corrosion and corpse poison damage simultaneously. Trait 3. Tyrant's frenzy unaffected by morale. Attack speed rises the more wounds sustained. Chu Jianghe opened the panel to examine their detailed stats. Strength, constitution, and agility had all doubled. Individual combat prowess surpassed standard peak second-rank troops. 500 second-rank bone tyrants. Chu Jianghe closed the panel. This investment yielded a 100% return. He raised a hand. Instantly, the 500 bone tyrants fell silent and formed orderly ranks. The remaining 7,000 ordinary zombies waited at attention nearby. A mechanical synthetic voice boomed across the skies of the blood moon half-plane. Midterm assessment time expired. Planar pull array activated. Teleportation pillars lit up all across the half-plane. A 6-pointed star formation materialized beneath Chu Jianghe's feet, and a sensation of weightlessness washed over him. The next moment, he returned to Federal First High School on the number 1 interstellar sports ground. The stadium buzzed with noise. Surviving students teleported back one after another. Most appeared exhausted, their vassal forces suffering heavy losses. Over 100 students eliminated early, their divine realms shattered, stood along the edges, their faces ashen. Lin Tianjiao was not among them. He had been crippled during the Divine Realm border skirmish long before, leaving the Lin family's subordinates leaderless. Above the platform, 3 massive holographic screens slowly descended. The principal stood before the main control station and pressed the settlement button. The midterm assessment has officially concluded. Rankings will now be announced. Data began scrolling across the screens. Slaying a first-rank ordinary monster granted 10 points. Slaying a second-rank monster granted 100 points. Resource gathering and map exploration also awarded corresponding bonus points. In all previous midterm assessments, the first-place score usually hovered around 100,000 points. Ranks scrolled upward rapidly from the bottom. The top 10 soon appeared. Third place, Zhang Quan. Points, 52,000. His name was gray, signifying elimination, his score frozen. Second place, Su Qingxue. Points, 450,000. An outburst of gasps swept the stadium. 450,000. She broke the highest record in the school's history. Senior Su Qingxue's polarized plainswolves must have swept the second-rank zones. On the mentor's stand, several high-ranking mentors nodded repeatedly, admiration playing on their faces. Su Qingxue stood near the front of the crowd, her expression calm. She did not glance at her score. Instead, she turned, her gaze cutting through the crowd to lock onto Chu Jianghe, standing in the corner. She knew full well her 450,000 points meant nothing before that monster. At the very top of the screen, the slot for first place flickered twice. Golden characters materialized. First place, Chu Jianghe. Points, 12,800,000. The noisy stadium fell dead silent. Every breath caught in throats. Mentors stared wide-eyed. Some rubbed their eyes, suspecting a system malfunction. The principal studied the raw data stream on his console, lost in silence. 12,800,000 points. This was far more than breaking a record. It was tearing the old record apart and feeding it into a meat grinder. Is there a bug in the system? One student stammered. A cold alert tone issued from the main console. Data verified and confirmed. Chu Jianghe. Over 30,000 first-rank creatures slain. Over 5,000 second-rank creatures slain. 1/3 rank Lord creature slain. 3 large-scale mineral veins exploited. Spiritual plant resources seized. A lengthy battle report rolled across the screen. Every line was staggering. Above all, the line, 1/3 rank Lord creature slain, stripped every teacher and student of the capacity for rational thought. A fledgling deity had slain a 3rd rank Lord. Su Qingxue took a deep breath and walked toward Chu Jianghe. The crowd parted automatically to make way. She halted before him. I concede defeat, Su Qingxue said plainly. Chu Jianghe lifted his gaze and said nothing. Your vassals truly require no rest. Su Qingxue regarded him. I once thought you reckless and ignorant. I take back those words now. Your model of divine realm development completely defies established divine theory. Efficiency governs all, Chu Jianghe replied evenly. Rest is merely wasted resources. Su Qingxue nodded. She did not bring up forming a team again and turned back to her place. She understood someone like Chu Jianghe needed no allies. The principal stepped onto the high platform. He cleared his throat, his voice carried across the entire grounds by amplification runes. Winner of this midterm assessment, Chu Jianghe. In accordance with school regulations, Chu Jianghe receives the sole special priority cultivation quota for this semester. Rewards: 3 first-rank Divine Realm expansion cards, 10 second-rank resource mystery boxes, 5 million divine coins. The principal waved his hand. A glowing golden spatial ring drifted toward Chu Jianghe. Chu Jianghe reached out and caught it. Chu Jianghe, come with me to my office. The principal stared at him intently. Chu Jianghe stowed the ring and followed the principal away from the stadium. At the same time, outside Federal First High School, a shadowy alley rarely touched by sunlight. Less than 500 meters from the school gates. Space rippled faintly deep within the alley. A figure cloaked entirely in black robes materialized out of thin air. No teleportation formation was used. It had torn open spatial barriers by force. Only true god-tier power made such a feat possible. The robed figure leaned against damp stone walls, crimson eyes glowing beneath the hood. He clutched a communication jade slip in one hand. Lin Songyuan's icy voice echoed from within. Yingsha, Chu Jianghe claimed first place in the assessment. The school's protective grand formation is active. You cannot breach it. But he must leave eventually. The robed assassin put away the jade slip. He raised his head, gazing toward the school gates. Chu Jianghe. A low, raspy murmur echoed through the shadowed alley. When a true god commands your death, you will not survive until nightfall. He faded into the shadows. Temperatures plummeted throughout the alley, and water vapor in the air crystallized into frost. Night descended. Chu Jianghe walked out of Federal First High School's main gate. Avoiding crowded main thoroughfares, he turned onto a side road leading toward the Interstellar Transit Station. He had traveled less than 300 meters when all surrounding noise abruptly vanished. The wind died away. Street illumination crystals flickered out one after another. Chu Jianghe halted his steps. The air turned thick and viscous. Drawing breath required 10 times the usual effort. He immediately activated the communicator strapped to his wrist. No signal. He attempted to contact his divine realm via will. The channel had been completely severed. Spatial lockdown. Shadows rippled 10 meters ahead. The black-robed figure materialized once more. No teleport array, only raw spatial tearing. For a fledgling deity to detect an unfolding divine force field, your perception is impressive, the robed man rasped. Chu Jianghe stood his ground, his right hand hanging naturally near the spatial ring at his waist. A low-ranked true god, Chu Jianghe stated flatly. Lin Songyuan sent you. Crimson light intensified beneath the assassin's hood. He offered no denial. The dead need not know too much. The robed man lifted his right hand. An overwhelming, irresistible pressure crashed down onto Chu Jianghe's shoulders. It was the absolute suppression of a higher life tier. Chu Jianghe's bones creaked under the strain. His legs trembled violently, and his knees slowly bent. The assassin intended to force him to kneel before execution. Chu Jianghe clamped his jaw tight, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. He forced his spine straight, carving 2 deep pits into the hardened alloy pavement beneath his feet. His knees hovered a hair's breadth above the ground, locked in place. Some backbone, the robed assassin snorted, amplifying the force field. Yet it means nothing. I will erase your soul outright, and your zombie horde will turn to ash alongside you. Chu Jianghe's expression remained utterly calm. His right index finger brushed lightly against his spatial ring. A fist-sized crystal core roiling with violent shadow energy appeared in his grasp. The source core harvested from the third-rank lord, the Shadow Earthworm. Chu Jianghe gripped the core and channeled every last trace of his divine power into it. Dense cracks spiderwebbed across the crystal's surface as destructive power churned within. The robed assassin's eyes narrowed. Detonate a third-rank core. Chu Jianghe stared directly at him. It cannot shatter your divine realm, yet it will tear apart the spatial nodes along this street. Once spatial rift currents surge forth, you will lose at least half your strength. The assassin fell silent for 2 seconds, then let out a dry laugh. A mutual destruction gambit? You will not live long enough to complete the detonation. The assassin held 2 fingers together like a blade, aiming straight for Chu Jianghe's forehead. A true god-tier soul strike, primed to launch. Chu Jianghe tensed his fingers, ready to crush the core by force. At this critical juncture, thick clouds overhead were ripped apart. A single dazzling blade light cut across vast stellar distances and crashed downward. No deafening shockwave followed, only pure, unadulterated destruction. The blade stroke landed directly atop the robed assassin. The divine force field he took pride in shattered instantly. He did not even have time to scream before his body was split cleanly from crown to heel. Dark red blood splattered outward, vaporized by the blade light's intense heat before it hit the ground. A fractured low-rank godhood tumbled to the pavement, rapidly fading to dust. One strike. A true god slain instantly. The blade light continued its momentum, carving an unfathomably deep gully in front of Chu Jianghe, yet veering perfectly clear of his body. Chu Jianghe stowed the earthworm core and looked upward toward the void. Ripples spread through empty space, and a man stepped out. He wore a dark black federal military uniform, 3 dark gold star insignia decorating his epaulets. Short cropped hair, sharp, stern features, eyes like honed steel. Chu Changfeng, commander of the 3rd Human Federal Legion. Chu Changfeng descended to the alloy road, his military boots striking the ground with a heavy thud. He glanced at the pile of ashes, then shifted his gaze to Chu Jianghe. His eyes swept over the blood still trickling from Chu Jianghe's lip and the right hand that had clutched the crystal core. Ruthless and decisive, Chu Changfeng said in a deep voice. I admire your temperament. Chu Jianghe wiped the blood from his jaw and said nothing. He could sense this man's power dwarfed the slain assassin 100-fold. Chu Changfeng ignored Chu Jianghe and turned toward the star domain where the Lin family resided. Slowly, he drew the military blade at his waist. Lin Songyuan. Chu Changfeng's voice was not loud, yet it carried rule-bound power, piercing spatial barriers and echoing above the Lin family ancestral grounds. Contests between peers abide by one rule. Each relies on their own strength. To perish at the hands of someone of equal standing marks you as weak. Chu Changfeng drove his blade into the ground before him. But if elders like you dare to strike across tiers and break established conventions, I, Chu Changfeng, will personally exterminate your entire Lin clan. Domineering. No room for compromise. A stifled groan reverberated from the depths of the distant star domain. Defensive formations surrounding the Lin ancestral grounds flickered violently before falling quiet. Lin Songyuan dared not utter a single retort. Chu Changfeng pulled his blade free and sheathed it. He turned back to face Chu Jianghe. I will shield you from troubles originating from higher tiers. Chu Changfeng pulled a dark golden card from his uniform pocket and tossed it toward Chu Jianghe. Chu Jianghe caught it. Crafted from an unknown material, neither metal nor jade, its front etched with intricate star charts, for characters printed on the reverse. Inter-school joint examination. Federal First High School is far too small to contain a true monster. Chu Changfeng met Chu Jianghe's gaze. Head to the joint examination arena. Command your zombies to trample all those arrogant heirs of financial conglomerates beneath your feet. Chu Changfeng turned and tore open a spatial rift. Do not disappoint me. With those words, his figure vanished into the void. Spatial confinement lifted. Evening breezes swept through the street, and the illumination crystals reignited. Chu Jianghe stood still, staring down at the dark golden pass in his hand. The inter-school joint examination. It was the premier trial ground for fledgling deities across the entire eastern sector of the Federation, gathering top talents from financial clans, aristocratic houses, and the military. Resources, divinity, high-grade flesh. Everything one could desire awaited there. Chu Jianghe stored the pass within his spatial ring and walked toward the interstellar transit station. He needed large quantities of second-rank monster corpses to expand his numbers of bone tyrants. The joint examination arena would be the perfect slaughterhouse. Chu Jianghe returned to his dormitory. Cold water washed the bloodstains off his body. That strike from Chu Chang had slain a true god and torn away the fog shrouding Chu Jianghe's eyes. The inter-school joint examination. Monsters from every corner of the Federation's eastern district would gather for it. Chu Jianghe dried himself, sat down at his desk, and opened his Divine Realm panel. Retainers, zombies 31,200 units. Boneplate tyrants 500 units. Resources, black iron or 400,000 units, blood copper or 150,000 units, coagulant herbs. Loot seized during the midterm assessment had completely overflowed his resource stockpile. Yet a new problem surfaced. Zombies were purely melee combat units. Aside from the 500 boneplate tyrants, the remaining 30,000 ordinary zombies were nothing more than cannon fodder against the heavily armed elite troops of corporate conglomerates. Powerful as the assimilation law was, it required time to take effect. Chu Jianghe tapped his fingers against the desktop. He had to accelerate the heavy industrialization of his divine realm without delay. He logged onto the internal forum of First Federal High School, scrolled past trivial posts discussing midterm exam scores, and headed straight for the trade section. He typed in search keywords, goblin, blueprint, bankrupt. The screen scrolled downward, and a pinned emergency post caught his eye. Selling Tier 2, goblin repeating flintlock, blueprint at a low price in exchange for 100 units of black iron or 100,000 divine coins. Urgent. Life or death situation. Poster. Zhao Taizhu, Class 4, Grade 3. Chu Jianghe pulled up Zhao Tieju's student file. A student from a civilian household. His original divine realm spanned a mere 0.5 square kilometers. Retainers. Green-skinned goblins. Goblins were universally known as resource gluttons within all divine realms. Their combat prowess was abysmal. They could not even beat ordinary goblins. Still, they possessed superior intelligence and an innate talent for engineering. Raising goblins was equivalent to burning resources non-stop. Zhao Taizhu lacked the funds to purchase or new blueprints. Most of his goblins had starved to death, placing his entire goblin race on the brink of extinction. If he failed to meet the standards in the monthly assessment the following week, he would face mandatory expulsion from school. Chu Jianghe powered down his optical brain and pulled on his school uniform jacket. His target had been located. The school's backstreet, cheap basement rental district. The air reeked of machine oil and mildew. Chu Jianghe halted at the end of the corridor and knocked on a rusted iron door. A narrow crack opened on the door, revealing a gaunt face marked by heavy dark circles and messy, unkempt hair. Zhao Taizhu sized up Chu Jianghe warily. Here for the blueprint? Did you bring the payment? Chu Jianghe pushed the door open and stepped inside uninvited. The basement was in utter disarray, littered with discarded gears, rusted iron pipes, and draft paper covered in complex formulas. I am not here to buy your blueprint. Chu Jianghe pulled out a barely intact chair and sat down. Zhao Tieju's expression hardened, and he reached for a wrench resting on the table. Are you here to pick a fight? I may be penniless, but my goblins still have a handful of self-detonation grenades. I am here to recruit you into my service, Chu Jianghe said in a calm tone. Zhao Taiju froze on the spot. He stared at Chu Jianghe, then glanced down at his own filthy clothes, crossing his arms and stepping backward. I won't take on personal service work no matter what you offer. Chu Jianghe wasted no extra words. He raised his wrist and activated the projection function on his optical brain. A glowing hologram unfolded across the dim basement walls, displaying real-time footage of Chu Jianghe's divine realm. Stretching endlessly were crimson mountain ranges, alongside 3 large manually excavated ore veins. Towering stockpiles of black iron and blood copper were glinted harshly under sunlight. Zhao Tieju's breath caught sharply. His eyes bulged as he fixed his gaze firmly on the holographic display. How much is this? 100,000? 200,000? Zhao Taiju swallowed hard. 400,000 units of black iron, 150,000 units of blood copper. Chu Jianghe met his gaze steadily. Moreover, reserves grow by 30,000 units every single day. Zhao Tieju's knees buckled weakly. He had never laid eyes on such a massive volume of mineral resources in his entire life. You hold the technical knowledge and blueprints, yet you have no labor force or raw materials. Chu Jianghe leaned back against the chair frame. I command endless laborers and inexhaustible minds, but I am severely lacking technical expertise. Let us form a partnership. Chu Jianghe laid out his terms plainly. You provide blueprints and technical guidance. I supply manpower and materials. Profits will be split 90-10, 90% for me, 10% for you. Zhao Taiju snapped back to his senses, staring wide-eyed and letting out a bitter laugh. 90-10 split? Your terms are even more exploitative than the corporate clans like the Lin Group. My goblins control core technological frameworks. Without my blueprints, your mountains of ore are nothing but useless rock. A 50-50 split is the absolute minimum. Otherwise, this conversation ends here. Chu Jianghe's facial features remained unchanged. He simply swiped across his optical brain to switch the projected footage. The new frame showed 1,000 zombies standing before crude stone workbenches. Without proper tools, they relied solely on their bare hands to transport, crush, and sort mineral chunks. Their movements were stiff and mechanical, yet impeccably precise. Most unsettling of all were their eyes, milky white, hollow, devoid of any trace of exhaustion. That can't be possible. Zhao Taiju studied the footage frantically, searching for flaws. Even if they do not require rest, forging demands extreme high temperatures and precise striking force. How could zombies possibly master such delicate manual labor? Chu Jianghe tossed a chunk of black iron ore onto the concrete floor. Crush it with your foot. Crunch. A single stomp from Chu Jianghe shattered the durable black iron into fragments of nearly identical dimensions. My innate ability grants me absolute dominion over every action they perform. Chu Jianghe looked down at Zhao Taiju from his elevated stance. Given a complete blueprint, they can replicate streamlined manufacturing motions with flawless precision. The technical barriers you pride yourself on amount to nothing more than a string of coded instructions in my territory. Chu Jianghe's voice echoed throughout the cramped basement. They need no sleep, no sustenance, feel no pain, and obey every command unconditionally. They operate 24 hours a day without pause. Their overall work efficiency is 100 times greater than your goblin workforce. A deathly silence blanketed the basement. Staring at these tireless, perfect labor units shown in the hologram, cold sweat dripped down Zhao Tieju's forehead. The technical barriers he had always cherished crumbled completely against such overwhelming working efficiency. The split remains 90-10. Chu Jianghe stood and headed for the door. Your 10% share will be more than enough to elevate all your goblins to Tier 2 within a week, alongside purchasing storefronts across half this commercial district. Chu Jianghe wrapped his hand around the doorknob. If you deem this compensation insufficient, I will seek out another struggling student on the verge of expulsion. You are far from the only student raising goblins within this school. He pulled the door open. Master! A shrill shout cut through the silence of the basement. Zhao Taiju dropped to his knees with a sliding rush, scrambling to the doorway and clinging tightly to Chu Jianghe's calves, smearing snot and tears all over the fabric of his trousers. Master! From this moment onward, you are my most respected elder brother. A 90-10 split is far too generous. Just grant me 5% of the earnings. As long as you cover raw materials and operational supplies, my goblins will work themselves to the bone for you. Chu Jianghe glanced down at the kneeling man. Stand up and send over all your blueprints immediately. 10 minutes later, Chu Jianghe returned to his dormitory. He opened the Divine Realm passage. An oil-stained parchment scroll drifted through the portal into his grasp. Tier 2 Blueprint. High-energy, smelting blast furnace. Hovering high above his Divine Realm, Chu Jianghe overlooked the dense swarms of zombie troops spread across the land. Commence construction. A divine edict swept across the land. 30,000 zombies lifted their heads in unison, faint fanatical glimmers igniting within their milky white eyes. Without uttering a single sound, they rapidly split into hundreds of orderly formations. Tasked with hauling stone, excavating refractory clay, and erecting structural frameworks. Every movement was streamlined and purposeful, with zero internal conflict or wasted effort. Constructing a blast furnace demanded extreme structural accuracy. The slightest miscalculation would trigger a catastrophic furnace explosion. Yet under Chu Jianghe's unified will, the 30,000 zombies functioned as countless interlocking components of a single precision machine. When boulders crushed a zombie's arm mid-transport, the injured entity continued hauling materials with its remaining limb without the slightest reaction. When scalding refractory paste seared zombie flesh into charred cinders during stirring work, they repeated the mechanical motion rigidly, without pause. Brutal and merciless, yet devastatingly efficient. Zhao Taizhu shared a live view of the Divine Realm through the passage. When he witnessed these undead constructs building a colossal blast furnace in half an hour, via crude yet perfectly calibrated movements, a project that would take senior Goblin engineers a full 2 weeks to complete, he collapsed onto the basement floor, bowing repeatedly toward the glowing projection screen in utter awe. A miracle, an industrial miracle. Zhao Taizhu shouted madly. At the heart of the Divine Realm stood a 20-meter-tall crude stone blast furnace, towering over the landscape. Its rugged, ferocious design embodied raw, violent grandeur. Chu Jianghe retrieved a dark red crystal throbbing with ferocious thermal energy from his spatial ring. The fire-attuned secondary crystal core harvested from a shadow earth dragon. He slotted the crystal into the ignition trough at the furnace's base. Boom! A towering pillar of dark red fire erupted skyward, sending blistering heat rippling outward for kilometers in every direction. Thick black smoke billowed continuously from the furnace's chimney stack. The first blast furnace within Chu Jianghe's Divine Realm ignited successfully. Staring into the roaring flames, a cold smirk tugged at the corner of Chu Jianghe's mouth. The gears of his industrial revolution had officially begun to turn. Soon enough, all the elite prodigies across the Federation would learn the true meaning of crippling firepower inferiority. Thick black smoke blotted out the entire sky. There were no sacred hymns, no radiant divine auras. Only deafening mechanical roars reverberating across heaven and earth. Empowered by the tenfold movement boost from the zeal of the fallen, 30,000 zombies formed massive black formations. Tireless and unfed, they hauled ore into the furnace, poured molten metal, and hammered mechanical components in a crude, brutal yet flawlessly precise assembly line. Scorching sparks burned black holes into their desiccated flesh, yet the zombies never flinched, swinging their iron hammers fast enough to leave afterimages in the air. For these undead beings, forging metal became their sole reason for existing. Floating midair, Chu Jianghe surveyed this frantically operating heavy industrial base spread beneath him. The 400,000 units of black iron ore were being consumed at a visible rate, gradually transformed into piles of cold mechanical components. Zhao Taizhu stared fixedly at the projected feed from the Divine Realm passage, heavy dark circles etched deep beneath his eyes. He had gone 7 full days without sleep, not from fatigue, but from overwhelming shock and excitement. They're all insane, completely insane. Zhao Taizhu clutched his matted hair, his voice hoarse and strained. Goblins required food, rest, and regular mental relief to maintain productivity. These zombies kept working as long as their limbs remained intact. Even with a broken arm, they would clamp wrenches between their teeth to fasten bolts securely. Even the most ruthless industrial magnates would shed tears witnessing such labor output, and harsh slave owners would acknowledge their unparalleled efficiency. Chu Jianghe walked over to Zhao Taizhu and tossed a vial of high-grade mental recovery potion toward him. Update me on blueprint progress. Chu Jianghe spoke in an emotionless, steady tone. Zhao Taizhu caught the potion and drained it in one gulp. The restorative energy washed over his overtaxed mind, igniting fanatical crimson veins across his pupils. Master, I've completely redesigned the original blueprints to match your zombie's unique traits. He activated his optical brain to display an intricate rotating holographic blueprint. Traditional goblin flintlocks must account for recoil, barrel overheating, and the physical limits of living operators. Zhao Taiju zoomed in on the weapon's core components with rapid finger swipes. Your zombies feel no pain or fear, and their skeletal hardness can be strengthened endlessly through advancement. I stripped away every safety buffer built into conventional designs to maximize firing rate and destructive power. I've named this new weapon the 6-barrel enchanted Gatling gun. The holographic blueprint rotated slowly in the dim basement space, showcasing 6 thick black iron barrels etched with dense heat dissipation runes, paired with an ammunition magazine holding a staggering 5,000 rounds. Bullets were forged from an alloy of blood copper and black iron, with basic armor-piercing runes carved into every warhead. To demonstrate its destructive force, Zhao Taiju dragged out a handcrafted prototype weapon and ordered a regular Tier 1 zombie to test fire it. The moment the trigger was pulled, overwhelming recoil shattered the ordinary zombie's arm bones. The undead unit did not cease fire, however, pulling the trigger using fractured bone shards until its entire right arm exploded outward. Zhao Taiju gestured toward the scattered bone fragments across the floor. As you can see, regular zombies cannot withstand the recoil. The Gatling gun paired with its ammunition magazine weighs a full 300 caddies. Only Tier 2 boneplate tyrants equipped with my custom lightweight powered exoskeleton can fully counteract this recoil force. He pulled up a second blueprint depicting rugged steel frames bolted directly into the spinal and leg bones of the zombie warriors. Comfort was entirely disregarded, with the design built solely for load-bearing capacity and mechanical power output. Chu Jianghe studied the blueprint with clear approval shining in his eyes. Melee cold weapons inevitably faced hard limits on battlefield effectiveness. Flesh was weak, and machinery represented true transcendence. This pure, brutal aesthetic of destruction was exactly what he sought. How long will mass production take? Chu Jianghe asked. With the blast furnace running non-stop and zombies achieving a 100% forging yield rate, Zhao Taiju hammered frantically at his keyboard. 1 week, master. Within 7 days, I can fully equip 500 heavy assault units. Understood. Chu Jianghe turned toward the exit. Unlimited material supplies will be delivered continuously. Only deliver the finished units as promised. Back to the present moment, the plaza of the Divine Realm. 500 Tier 2 boneplate tyrants stood in immaculate formation across the plaza. Their original pale bone plating was now covered with thick black iron armor. The hydraulic rods of the mechanical exoskeletons hissing lowly with every simulated breath movement. Each boneplate tyrant had a 6-barrel Gatling gun welded to its right arm, while its left hand gripped a 2-meter blood copper bone cleaver. Oversized alloy ammunition canisters were strapped to their backs, thick ammunition belts feeding directly into each gun chamber. Cold machinery fused seamlessly with violent undead might, radiating an oppressive aura that weighed heavily on all surrounding terrain. Standing atop a high platform, Chu Jianghe overlooked his newly reformed army. Commence firing test. Chu Jianghe issued his divine command. Click. All 500 boneplate tyrants raised their right arms simultaneously, aiming their gun muzzles toward an abandoned mountain 1 kilometer away. The 6 barrels began to spin faster and faster, generating sharp, piercing wind currents. The next instant, roar! 500 streaks of dark red muzzle fire erupted at once. A deafening detonation tore through the air of the Divine Realm. With a fire rate of 6,000 rounds per minute, 3 million armor-piercing bullets wove an impenetrable blanket of fire in a single minute. The mountain 1 kilometer distant was instantly swallowed by blazing fire. Hard bedrock was torn to shreds, and topsoil was blasted into the sky. 1 minute later, the gun barrels halted their rotation, glowing dark red with residual heat as thin white smoke curled upward. The dozens of meters tall mountain had been completely leveled to the ground, its surface pockmarked with bullet holes and dotted with patches of solidified molten rock. Zhao Taiju slumped to the ground beneath the observation platform, staring blankly at the devastating scene unfolding before him. Praised the Gatling Bodhisattva, 6 pure barrels firing uranium rounds, 630 rotations per heartbeat, delivering universal salvation through annihilation. A cold, sharp smile spread across Chu Jianghe's face. These undead warriors were the true fourth calamity. Whether facing corporate elite soldiers or warriors blessed with noble high-tier bloodlines, absolute blanket firepower rendered all beings equal on the battlefield. Star Calendar 3042, November 15th. The Eastern District Inter-School Joint Examination officially commenced. The main plaza of the interstellar train station buzzed with bustling crowds. The top 10 high schools across the entire Eastern District gathered more than 3,000 elite apprentice gods in one location. A massive floating hologram flashed overhead, scrolling the brutal rules governing the examination. Examination venue: medium ruined plain, the Lost Galaxy. Rules: unrestricted hunting, resource plunder, and territory occupation. Rankings are determined by total accumulated points. Clad in standard black federal combat fatigues, Chu Jianghe stood alone at the edge of the crowd. Surrounding him were elegantly dressed heirs from powerful corporate clans, chatting casually in clustered groups. I heard the monster from 1st Military Academy showed up for this exam. The one who awakened the 5th-tier Titan bloodline? How are the rest of us supposed to compete against him? The Lin clan poured massive resources into this event. Rumor says Lin Tianjiao commands a full regiment of Tier 3 Storm Griffin Knights. He is clearly aiming for a top 10 ranking. Several students wearing luxurious school uniforms spoke openly without restraint. The crowd suddenly parted to form a clear pathway. Lin Tianjiao walked forward surrounded by a retinue of followers, sheathed in gleaming Tier 3 divine armor with a sullen, menacing gaze. News of the failed True God assassination attempt had been strictly sealed away by upper management of the Lin clan. Yet Lin Tianjiao knew for certain that Chu Jianghe had survived the attack. Lin Tianjiao halted directly in front of Chu Jianghe. "You were absurdly lucky to escape death," Lin Tianjiao hissed in a lowered voice, teeth gritted with resentment. Chu Jianghe lifted his gaze to meet his stare. "There will be no Chu Chang shielding you within the examination grounds," Lin Tianjiao sneered coldly. "My storm griffins will tear your zombie hordes into shreds." Chu Jianghe remained unruffled by the threat and stated a plain fact in response. "The meat from your griffins should taste marginally better than that of half-orc creatures." Lin Tianjiao's face twisted with rage and prepared to lash out, before the cold mechanical voice of the announcement system cut off their confrontation. "Attention, all examinees. The planar teleportation gate will activate shortly." A gigantic, deep blue teleportation gate materialized at the center of the plaza, turbulent spatial currents emanating from its surface. Chu Jianghe ignored Lin Tianjiao entirely and walked straight toward the glowing portal. He lifted his head with a profound gaze. Titan bloodline. Storm Griffin cavalries? He wondered if these revered noble creatures could withstand 6,000 armor-piercing rounds discharged every single minute. He stepped forward and vanished into the deep blue luminous veil. A massacre defined as industrial dimensional suppression was poised to begin. The Lost Galaxy, primary assembly zone. Thousands of elite apprentice gods from the Eastern District segregated themselves into distinct factions across a massive floating platform. Divine glows intertwined, and ripples of conflicting law energies permeated the surrounding air. At the camp belonging to Eastern District's 2nd High School, a blonde young woman stood surrounded by admiring peers, Lu Rian, daughter of the city mayor. Draped in emerald elven royal robes, a faint spectral projection of a high elf loomed behind her form. A wave of natural law energy spread outward, coaxing delicate flowers to bloom atop the cold metallic flooring of the platform. Toward the 3rd Military Academy's gathering stood a burly crew-cut young man with his upper body bare, fine golden scales covering his skin surface, blue eyes. He was the direct heir of a major corporate clan who commanded retinue of sub-draconian beings. Even standing passively, faint sulfur lingered around his breath, keeping all onlookers at a 10-meter respectful distance. Twin brothers from 4th High School wielded rare twin gargoyle retainers. A kendo genius from 5th High School carried an oversized horse cutting blade with Tier 2 berserkers as his fighting force. These were genuine heaven-blessed prodigies, starting their journeys with Tier 2 or even Tier 3 high-grade retainers. Backed by superior resources, cultivation manuals, and larger divine realm land areas far beyond ordinary students' reach. The spatial teleport array flickered to life, and Chu Jianghe stepped out into the assembly zone. Dressed in plain standard black federal combat fatigues with zero visible divine aura, he looked indistinguishable from a low-ranking logistics soldier. Trailing timidly behind him was Zhao Taizhu, clutching a worn toolbox stuffed with blueprints and wrenches tightly to his chest, while hauling a human-tall backpack over his shoulders, looking every bit like a displaced scavenger fleeing disaster. Members from 1st High School have arrived. Who is the leading figure here? I don't recognize him. Why is Lin Tianjiao lingering at the rear? Lu Ai's glanced toward Chu Jianghe, his gaze settling on the skull emblem stamped across the divine realm badge pinned to his chest. He let out a mocking scoff. Low-tier zombies. Has First High School fallen so far that they send someone with such worthless retainers as their representative? Lin Tianjiao, does your school truly have no capable candidates left? A male companion beside Lu Rian pinched his nose in undisguised disgust. Zombies are bad enough. And what is that scrawny fellow trailing him? A goblin? Did this pair come to rummage through trash within the examination grounds? Peals of mocking laughter echoed loudly across the assembly zone. Lin Tianjiao stood in the First High School contingent with a dark expression, keeping silent. His gaze was fixed firmly on Chu Jianghe's back. The assassination attempt by the true god had ended in failure, and he still had no clue how Chu Jianghe had survived the ordeal. Even so, he was glad to watch Chu Jianghe become the target of geniuses from the entire district. Don't speak so lightly, young Master Lei, Lin Tianjiao sneered. He took first place in our school's midterm assessment after all. He overpowered a second-order magical beast purely by swarming it with hordes of zombies. Hordes? Lei Zhe curled his lip in disdain. Against overwhelming power, sheer numbers are nothing but cannon fodder. A single breath of dragon fire from my dragonkin subordinate can incinerate tens of thousands of zombies to ashes. Zhao Taizhu trembled violently, his knees going weak. He had never laid eyes on so many prominent figures in his life. Any one of them could crush his goblin form 100 times over with ease. Boss, they seem to be talking badly about us. Zhao Taizhu shrank behind Chu Jianghe and lowered his voice. That scaled man is Lei Zhe from the 3rd Military Academy. His family monopolizes magical beast crystal trade across the Eastern District. The lady in the green dress is the mayor's daughter. Quiet, Chu Jianghe cut him off. He did not even lift his eyelids as he pulled up his wrist-mounted optical brain, projecting a tattered star chart into the air. Statistics from past joint examinations prove medium-sized fractured planes contain no fewer than 3 source energy or veins apiece. Chu Jianghe traced his finger across the star chart, marking several high-probability coordinates. Is your goblin prospecting squad ready? Zhao Taizhu froze in bewilderment. How could his boss still be thinking about mining at a moment like this? Daring not to disobey, he quickly nodded. All set. Equipped with cutting-edge iron ore detectors, they can pinpoint mineral deposits buried 50 meters underground without fail. Chu Jianghe gave a curt nod, while everyone else debated bloodlines, combat prowess and rankings. He was calculating output, work efficiency, and how to drain this plane of every last resource. 20,000 zombie miners waited restlessly, and the furnaces must never go cold. Industrial expansion demanded endless resources, and this examination plane was nothing short of his personal cash cow. A sudden commotion rippled through the crowd. Draped in an icy blue mage robe, Su Qingxue strode straight through the ranks of First High School students. Frigid frost forced the surrounding students to step back. She halted right beside Chu Jianghe. Chu Jianghe. Su Qingxue spoke in a cool, crisp tone. Every pair of eyes in the area locked onto them instantly. Lu Rian frowned sharply, while Lei Zhe narrowed his eyes. What do you want? Chu Jianghe stared at the star chart, never lifting his head. This joint examination has no restrictions on team formation. Su Qingxue studied the side of his face. My Frost Direwolf provides superior mobility and crowd control, and your zombies handle frontline combat. We split rewards 70-30, with you taking the larger share. A dead silence fell over the gathering. The aloof school beauty of First High, a top 5 genius across the Eastern District, had voluntarily sought out someone who commanded zombies for a team-up and surrendered most of the profits to boot? Lei Zhe's face darkened instantly. Jealousy flickered across Lu Rian's eyes. How could an ordinary civilian earn Su Qingxue's favor? Lin Tian crushed the water cup in his grip until his knuckles whitened with strain. I decline the offer. Chu Jianghe shut down his optical brain, his tone utterly calm. Why? Confusion washed over Su Qingxue. She had witnessed Chu Jianghe's overwhelming troop deployment ability during the midterm exam, and was certain their alliance would dominate the entire exam grounds. Your wolves need food, rest, and feel fear when facing danger. Chu Jianghe raised his head, sweeping his gaze across all the gathered geniuses. They are far too delicate and will slow down my pace of conquering this entire plane. Arrogance, unbridled arrogance. He had written off a high-tier Frost Direwolf as completely worthless. Lei Zhe let out a cold laugh and marched forward, dark golden scales glinting with dangerous luster beneath the overhead lights. Conquer the whole plane? With your rotting, mangled corpses? Lei Zhe loomed over Chu Jianghe in a condescending stance. I suggest you keep that sharp tongue of yours intact if we cross paths inside the examination zone. Chu Jianghe met Lei Zhe's stare with total emotional blankness. Dragonkin, Chu Jianghe said slowly. Your scales can be forged into ballistic armor plating, your bones refined into nutrient fluid. Your flesh is likely denser than that of orc hybrids. Lei Zhe stood dumbfounded. He did not grasp the meaning of ballistic plating, yet he fully understood the rest of the statement. This zombie summoner was openly appraising the market value of his subordinate's corpse? You're asking for death. Rage surged through Lei Zhe, stirring his divine power. A low hum reverberated through the space. High above the assembly zone, a colossal mechanical eye snapped open wide. A shrill alarm cut short Lei Zhe's impending attack. The inorganic voice of the federal main brain boomed across the venue. Warning, violent conflict is prohibited within the assembly grounds. Joint examination map locked. Plane designation, K099 Edge of the Abyss environmental rating. Extremely hostile indigenous faction. Third Order Void Zerg severely mutated. The mechanical voice paused for 1 second. Special rule, death mode activated for this assessment. The Zerg possess extreme aggression and assimilation capabilities. All examinees must safeguard their divine realm cores. Core destruction results in genuine mortal fatality. Transmission will commence in 10 seconds. Chaos erupted throughout the crowd, and panic spread like wildfire. Third Order Zerg? And heavily mutated on top of that. This is madness. Past examinations never spawned foes stronger than second-order monsters. How are we supposed to fight this? I want to withdraw. This is a suicide mission. The confident expressions of Lei Zhe and Lu Rian vanished without a trace. The Zerg were the most infamous race across the Star Sea. They felt no pain, knew no fear, driven solely by an insatiable urge to devour everything in their path. Massive in number and fearless in battle. Even second-order Dragonkin would be torn to the bone once trapped within a Zerg swarm. Panic and disorder consumed the assembly area. Chu Jianghe, however, looked up at the Zerg data displayed on the holographic screen. A chilling fanaticism glowing deep within his gray eyes. He turned toward Zhao Taizhu. Zerg. A faint smirk tugged at Chu Jianghe's lips. Zhao Taizhu swallowed hard, his legs trembling uncontrollably. Boss, those are Zerg. They devour every living thing they catch. Vast numbers? Fearless combatants? Chu Jianghe's voice dropped to a low rumble. Images of 500 cold metallic killing machines stationed inside his divine realm flashed through his mind. I wonder if their carapaces can withstand 6,000 rounds of depleted uranium armor-piercing shells per minute. I wonder how many bone tyrants can ascend to third-order evolution by feeding on their flesh. The 10-second countdown reached 0. Deep blue pillars of light crashed down, swallowing the 3,000 apprentice gods whole. The brutal meat grinder had officially opened for business. The Lost Star System, Plane K099. The sky hung murky blood red, and the air reeked of acrid rot. Lu Rian materialized amid a barren stone forest. No sooner had she summoned 300 second-order nature elves than violent tremors ripped through the ground, collapsing the stone formations all around her. Countless shadowy figures burst forth from beneath the earth, the Void Zerg. Specifically mutated third-order scythe beetles covered in dark brown exoskeletons with razor-sharp bladed forelimbs. Loose your arrows. Lu Rian paled and shrieked her command. Elf archers drew their enchanted bows and unleashed a storm of arrows. Yet the projectiles only left faint white scratches against the beetles' tough shells. The Zerg swarm pressed forward without pause, swallowing the elf battle formation in an instant. Screams tore through the air as the noble nature elves were sliced in two by the Zerg's limbs and torn apart in a frenzy of feeding. Lu Rian crumpled to the ground, watching her divine realm core's energy plummet sharply, despair clouding her vision. The natural laws she had always taken pride in were utterly useless against the Zerg's primal hunger instinct. Lei Zhe fared even worse on the open plains, having landed directly in the path of a major Zerg patrol unit. Tear them to shreds. Lei Zhe's eyes blazed red as he ordered his prized second-order Dragonkin into battle. The Dragonkin unleashed blasts of searing dragon fire, incinerating the front ranks of the bugs, only for several towering third-order blast beetles to drop from the sky and crash straight into the Dragonkin formation. A deafening explosion burst outward, spraying corrosive green bodily fluid everywhere. The Dragonkin's durable dark golden scales dissolved like thin paper under the acid, exposing raw, bleeding wounds in an instant. Thousands upon thousands of scythe beetles swarmed the fallen Dragonkin, dismembering them alive. Lei Zhe's defensive line crumbled entirely in less than 3 minutes. Help! Main brain, pull me out. I demand an immediate withdrawal. Laze slammed his wrist optical brain frantically, but the plane's magnetic field had completely jammed all outgoing signals. The privileged air of a corporate conglomerate was reduced to nothing more than a desperate fugitive. Federal Eastern District 10 School Joint Examination Monitoring Hall. On the massive holographic display, the glowing markers representing individual examinees flickered erratically before winking out one after another. 30% of participants had been felled in a mere 10 minutes. What is going on here? Why are there so many heavily mutated third-order Zerg? Lu Jiangwo, mayor of the Eastern District, slammed his fist against the table, his face livid with rage. The marker for his daughter Lu Rian had dimmed to a barely perceptible flicker. There was a critical deviation in the plane coordinates, sweat beaded on the First Military Academy principal's forehead. This place is not merely the edge of the abyss. It is an outpost hatching ground for the Zerg. We were misled by falsified main brain data. A heavy silence blanketed the monitoring hall. An outpost hatching ground meant the entire plane functioned as a massive Zerg weapons factory. Force open an emergency transmission channel and extract the students at once. Lu Jiangwo roared. We cannot. The technical staff member replied in a shaky voice. The Zerg hive's magnetic field has locked the plane's fundamental laws. It will take a minimum of 3 hours to re-establish a stable teleport anchor. 3 hours. None of these talented young examinees could hope to survive half an hour amid the endless insect swarms. It's over. The Third Military Academy principal sank into his chair, staring helplessly at footage of Lei Zhe's collapsing defenses. Lin Songyuan stood silently in a corner, observing the chaos with cold detachment. Lin Tianjiao was protected by his Storm Griffin and would survive for the time being. The fates of everyone else meant nothing to him. There was only one thing he needed to confirm. Pull up the coordinate marker for the student named Chu Jianghe from First High School. Lin Songyuan spoke abruptly. The technicians rushed to comply, zooming in on a gray skull-shaped icon in the upper corner of the screen. Where exactly did he land? The technician gasped in shock. Coordinate Sector K099 Central Zone. That is the primary central hatching nest. The holographic feed sharpened to reveal the scene within a massive circular meteorite crater. Chu Jianghe and Zhao Taizhu stood at the crater's bottom, ringed by pulsating egg sacs glowing sickly luminescent green across the crater walls. A dense tide of Zerg was converging along the crater rim, tens of thousands in total. Mutated wyverns, heavy-plated shield bugs, swarms of scythe beetles, alongside several hill-sized fourth-order hive matriarch guardians. They screeched in unison, their compound eyes blazing with bloodlust as they fixed their predatory gaze on the two intruders below. Tens of thousands of Zerg. Lu Jiangwo closed his eyes. That student is as good as dead. No force in this world can save him. A cruel smirk spread across Lin Songyuan's face. Even with Chu Changfeng backing him, what difference would it make? Against the sheer numerical advantage of the Zerg, every form of resistance was futile. His low-tier zombie army would not even be enough to fill the bug stomachs. Inside the meteorite crater, Zhao Tieju's legs turned to limp noodles, and he slumped heavily onto the ground, clutching his toolbox as his teeth chattered loudly. Boss, we're completely surrounded. He stared up at the sky darkened by the massive insect swarm, overcome with overwhelming terror. Tens of thousands, all third-order variants, were finished, utterly finished. Chu Jianghe paid no heed to Zhao Tieju's panic. He lifted his head to survey the tsunami of Zerg charging toward him, the stench of rotting flesh washing over his face alongside their deafening screeches. Chu Jianghe opened the gateway to his divine realm. 500 second-order bone tyrants marched forth with heavy, ponderous steps, hydraulic pistons hissing lowly with every movement. Their black iron armor glinted with icy cold sheen beneath the crimson sky, each unit armed with a 6-barreled enchanted Gatling gun and a 2-meter blood copper bone cleaver. They stood rigidly behind Chu Jianghe, devoid of fear or hesitation. Shortly afterward, more than 20,000 enraged first-order zombies flooded out to form a crude flesh barrier on the outer perimeter. Yet against tens of thousands of third-order Zerg, this troop deployment appeared woefully inadequate. Dozens of mutated wyverns doved downward first, spewing clouds of corrosive green venom, while walls of scythe beetles surged down the crater's sloped banks. 1,000 meters, 800 meters, 500 meters. Back in the monitoring hall, every observer averted their gaze, unable to bear witness to the inevitable massacre. We might as well prepare to collect his remains, the First Military Academy principal sighed heavily. Back inside the plane, Chu Jianghe watched the incoming Zerg tide without a flicker of fear. His gray eyes reflected the endless horde of insects stretching across the landscape, an endless supply of high-grade organic tissue, premium biochemical raw materials, and boundless resources to push his zombie legion into third-order evolutionary ascension. A slow, delighted grin curved Chu Jianghe's mouth, identical to a capitalist gazing upon an unlimited workforce that labored for free and delivered itself straight to his doorstep. Zhao Taizhu, Chu Jianghe called out softly. Huh. Zhao Taizhu stared blankly upward. Memorize this sight. Chu Jianghe raised his right hand and snapped his fingers. The crisp sound was nearly drowned out by the Zerg's piercing cries, yet its impact was instantaneous. The 506-barreled enchanted Gatling guns all raised their barrels in unison. Dinner time. Chu Jianghe issued his divine command. A deep, resonant hum vibrated through the air as 500 gun barrels began to spin at high velocity.